looks like we're live. Let me just test the audio here real quick, and then we'll get going. Alright, that sounds good. Looks like we got a good connection, good stream, good audio. So we're going to get started here. Good evening, everybody, especially those on the East Coast. Thanks for tuning in. And we're just going to get started here covering a severe thunderstorm. It's primarily damaging wind and hail threat, with also a few tornadoes are possible here in the northeast United States. Specifically right now, Pennsylvania is under the gun for a number of severe thunderstorms. We're watching a small line of showers this afternoon cross Lake Erie, and as kind of expected, once they got into a little more prime conditions, they have really fired off and created now a line of severe thunderstorms. I was watching a traffic camera as we were getting the stream going here. Let's see if we can get that back on. It may have gone down because it's actually right in the severe weather, right in west or east of Youngstown. So I have to try and get a different traffic cam up. All right. So no tornado warnings yet, just a severe thunderstorm warning, a whole line of them. This should be a good one here. So this traffic cam is along I-79, and it's going to be just south of the line of severe thunderstorms right in this area here. I think the storms are behind this traffic cam because you can see the gray, darker clouds off to the left on the traffic cam, and then it's lighter on the top right. But it looks like rain is already falling, so this might actually just be a little further north, up into this area here by Slippery Rock, and an area that's just gone under a larger severe thunderstorm warning. So we can really pay attention to the traffic cameras, and it keeps going out though. Alright, that might work right there. So right now the line of severe thunderstorms extends from just east of Youngstown, really right on the Pennsylvania and Ohio state line, approaching Newcastle right now with some larger hail in that core just to your north. Grove City down to Slippery Rock on I-79, not a good trip right now. All the way over towards Clarion, Limestone, along I-80. The storms are now just south of I-80, the heaviest part of the storms, but that's still not a fun ride right now. As you can see, along I-80 over towards Monroe, Clarion, and then further into Pennsylvania, Sandy, Brockway, over towards Driftwood, and then we get a little further from the radar site, but I can get over to this storm here. Actually, let's go to the single site so we can get a little better look at these. Now just to the north of Williamsport in Pennsylvania, Hillsgrove over to Wilmot, another severe thunderstorm here. And then once you get into northeast Pennsylvania, over towards the Scranton area, there was more clouds and stabilized atmosphere from previous rain and some other storms up here in New York. So I don't think we're going to see much in the way of severe weather really from the Pennsylvania border all the way through the rest of New England. You can see there's still a lot of clouds, maybe a rumble of thunder in Hartford area down over towards Providence, Rhode Island. That I think is going to stay pretty much intact. It was cooler and cloudier, and they had more persistent showers and some storms really all afternoon. So I think that's going to keep our severe weather really confined, especially to an area that's, I think, even south and west of the Scranton area. It's still possible we could get a couple higher end storms down in this area, but I don't think so. I think that still hasn't destabilized as much as points further south. Now these storms here, back towards State College in Pennsylvania, they're really just now starting to enter the enhanced risk area that the Storm Prediction Center upgraded to over the last 24 hours or so. Especially this area here in Pennsylvania, around Pittsburgh, up towards Altoona and State College. This area has been actually close to 80 degrees today and actually got a pretty good amount of sunshine. So that's going to destabilize the atmosphere, and these storms are coming into that prime real estate here as they move south, southeast. A little different direction than we are often seeing storms, but they are moving more in a direction like this, and I can put the radar into motion too so you can see it. So over the next couple hours, State College, Altoona, Pittsburgh, and then eventually down into south central Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Lancaster, Chambersburg, we'll get into storms. The models showed the storms downtrending as they got to the southern parts of Pennsylvania. We'll have to keep our eye on that and see if that holds true. But as they get south and east, especially towards Lancaster, Philadelphia, Reading, Allentown, they should start to be on the downtrend. You can see there's already some hail reports coming in from the storms as they crossed here north of I-80. Mostly, and this one's from a National Weather Service employee, so a pretty good report here. Quarter-size hail in southeast Geauga County in Ohio. Train spotter, quarter-sized hail. So looks like hail for nearly 5 minutes covering the ground. This is in Trumbull County, Ohio. And then one from the Warren area. Hail 1 inch west of Warren. So especially this area here by Newcastle, that is an area that I think we're watching for quarter size, maybe up to 1 inch hail here, coming into Volant, Maryville, and then just on the northwest and north side of Newcastle here. That's a pretty prime area for hail, especially on 376, Route 18, Route 158. That area right there is a pretty sizable hail core coming at you. And that's generally moving down towards Plain Grove, maybe skirting the Slippery Rock area. Definitely in a severe thunderstorm with larger hail, it's good to stay away from windows and exposed areas. Be inside the house, be in a stable structure, because hail damage can, especially if it's windblown, come through glass and or if you're on like a screen porch, something like that, it can be pretty dangerous. And certainly also if you're outside, it's kind of an obvious one there. But we definitely want to be in a sturdy structure here on the north side of Newcastle, as that's a pretty sizable hail core coming at you. I'm going to go back to the single site radars here. So that is being warned for 1 inch hail. Some decent hail cores here towards Toby and Rimmersburg. This is all in Pennsylvania right now. Coming towards New Bethlehem, Somerville, Reynoldsville, Dubois. Not sure how to pronounce that one. But this is all up north of Pittsburgh right now. So if you're in the immediate Pittsburgh area, you got a little bit of time to put the cars in the garage, get them under some shelter, batten down the hatches a little bit. Especially this cell here now north of Newcastle. That is some pretty sizable hail. And this is that storm that came across eastern Ohio that had the reports that I just read of hail covering the ground and at least 1 inch hail. That core may be growing though. That's some pretty bright returns that we're seeing here with the bright purples into the blue colors. Just make sure posting it, and we'll get back to it here. So this is quickly approaching the I-79 corridor here between Brent and Jacksville. If you know anyone that's traveling in this area here north of Pittsburgh, maybe give them a call, give them a heads up. Tell them to get off the road, because it would not be good if you're traveling, say, north here, and you're going to get slammed first with heavy rain and wind, and then you're going to run into the hail core, and that can cause traffic problems. Let's take a peek here at our temperamental live camera here. This is in Grove City. Okay, so it's just north now of the storms. Let me see if I can get one that's a little further south here. We're getting a new severe thunderstorm warning here. I can just tuck this down in here. Let me get this traffic cam up here and see what we have. If we have any live cameras, that would be great. Okay, so now that's a little better. This traffic cam is just south of this storm here, right by the Jacksville area. So it is getting really dark, as you can see on this traffic cam, as these storms are pushing in from the northwest. And I'm not liking the look of this storm here at the moment. So let's bring up the dual screen. And there is a little bit of rotation in here, right by the Harlansburg area. And we can look also along the rest of this line. There is a small tornado chance today. A 5% risk area was highlighted, basically centered in western Pennsylvania by the Storm Prediction Center. Not seeing a ton of strong rotation. This one, though, is looking, if this can keep kind of pulling itself out here. It may get some rotation up in this area here. You can see it's trying to tighten up a little bit. So that's one to keep our eye on. And beyond any tornado threat, this thing by Slippery Rock has large hail right now. Coming into the Slippery Rock area, those blues and bright purples, that's indicating some sizable hail. I have to keep restarting the traffic cams, but you can see there the roads are wet right now. It's starting to rain. We might be able to see larger hail on this traffic cam. Because this is like right by those storms. So that traffic cam is like right in this area here. Right about in there is the traffic cam, and then the big hail is just off to the north here. Unfortunately, I think it's facing the wrong direction still, but if this thing can pass over the traffic cam, that will give us a good view and seeing some ground truth here. But this area here, Slippery Rock, Plain Grove, over towards Harlansburg, is an area that it's a good idea to get into a safe and sturdy shelter. You can see they upgraded the hail to 1 3/4 inch, almost 2-inch hail possible out of the storm, and then 70-mile-an-hour winds. They're also warning it pretty far out in advance. We'll keep an eye on that rotation point. But this area has had a history of hail. Some new hail coming in here. Doesn't give too many details. But back here, as these storms were in northwest Ohio, you can see here hail for nearly 5 minutes covering the ground. So that will be something we can probably get some pictures. We might have some hail now on the camera. That looks a little thicker and brighter. If it's not hail, it's very heavy rain. But pretty sure we have some live hail right now. You can see the storms are really starting to sweep into this traffic cam now. Oop. Welcome, new viewers. We're tracking live storms in especially western Pennsylvania at the moment. Severe thunderstorm warnings all along this line, extending from near Slippery Rock all the way over through Clearfield, Punxsutawney, all the way over towards the areas around Williamsport, north and west of Williamsport. And then from there, the storms die down significantly and are under severe limits. There are storms coming towards Scranton that we can keep our eye on. I think, as I mentioned when the stream was getting going, pretty much north and east of Scranton, I don't think we're going to get much storms that are severe over here. Just too stabilized, the atmosphere from rain-cooled air, from showers and storms earlier. But it's this area, especially I think, this area I think is going to see some isolated severe storms, but the areas especially now where the warnings are, south and east of Williamsport, that's where I would give the highest risk level here for the evening. So storms coming into Williamsport right now. The heaviest ones with the larger hail now approaching Lock Haven and Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. So that's an interesting town name. Along I-80 towards Snowshoe, Clearfield, Sandy, Punxsutawney. You can see the hail cores in here. There's numerous hail cores. Probably going to give at least inch hail, especially where there's bright purples and the blue colors. Those are really showing some large hail cores. Yeah. Punxsutawney here. Hopefully Phil is in his burrow because this stuff is coming at you. Up here towards Oliveburg, that is a pretty significant hail core, heavy rain, high winds. And certainly when you have, we've talked about this in other streams, when we have high wind chances, when we have high winds up in the storms that are co-located with heavy rain and precip, that precip can tend to bring that heavy wind to the ground levels. So certainly some gusty winds, possibly severe winds there coming towards Punxsutawney. This storm is being warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail. So the traffic cam is looking a little clearer right now. So I think we did see this little appendage because the traffic cam is just on 79 right in this area here, and this appendage here has swung through with some heavy rain and probably some small hail. And right there you can see the sun is actually coming out behind this storm. So that is really cool to see. A lot of heavy rain. You can see the wash behind the cars. So even just a brief little part of the storm has really dumped a lot of rain onto the highway here. So that gives you an indication of how impactful that this little area was that's now approaching West Liberty, Pennsylvania. How even more impactful this area is here around Slippery Rock with even heavier rain, longer duration, and certainly larger hail back here in the blues. That is an interesting look here. So that probably was some hail because you can see off to the left now the camera, which I think is more towards the east. You can see it's definitely a bit of a rain shadow, but also it's a pretty bright rain shadow with kind of a white milkiness color to it. So I think there was some hail in there. I don't think we saw the biggest hail. I think the traffic cam is looking kind of like this. It's looking southeast. So this thing swung through here with that heavy rain and precip. It still may be raining a little bit over our traffic cam, but it's not nearly raining as much as it was just a couple minutes ago. The other big concern I have for western Pennsylvania is these storms, whether they're severe or not. Pittsburgh had flood emergencies the other day. This whole corridor, especially from Pittsburgh down 79 towards Charleston, West Virginia, has had a lot of heavy rain over the last few days. So this could add to that. The other problem is it's not going to take hurricane force winds to bring down some trees, especially trees that are shallow rooted. If they're in a waterlogged area, the ground isn't going to be able to hold those trees down to the ground. So it's just going to take possibly even a sub-severe level wind that could knock down some trees. So our traffic cam is up, but it's black. So I think it's having some issues now too. The last one did that when the storms went through. There might just be a lot of people trying to tune in and see this. So next up for this is I think the biggest storm here of the line. It's a tail end Charlie too, which is the ones we had to watch. But it's being warned for almost 2-inch hail and 70-mile-an-hour winds as this comes across Slippery Rock right now, headed towards West Sunbury and Muddy Creek here in western Pennsylvania. Let me put the map into motion. So we can see these storms are headed southeast. Generally the line is moving southeast. Some of the storms are moving a little bit more east within the line. But I think this track is pretty spot on. So this big storm is going to cross the area from West Sudbury over towards Kittanning here in Pennsylvania. just north of the Butler area. This thing might be staying along and north of Route 422 here in Pennsylvania right now, as it crosses, at least after the Slippery Rock area. This is a bit more of a rural area, but there are still towns up in here towards like West Sunbury and Muddy Creek. If it can, Butler is a fairly large town, small city here in north of the Pittsburgh area. And certainly if you're on the north side of Butler and East Butler, if you can hunker down for this storm, you are in the severe thunderstorm warning, and then points north of that. Really, if you're along and north of 422, Katanning, you also have storms coming in from your north, and they're moving pretty quickly. They're warned for 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. How fast does it say this line is moving? 35, moving southeast at 35. That warning is for the line of storms that's coming through Punxsutawney right now, approaching the Punxsutawney area. Alright, our cam's back. So you can see that cell moving off to the top left of our camera. Roads are still pretty wet there. With this thing quickly forming a pretty solid line, that may keep the tornado chances even a little lower than they were expecting. Some of the models showed some individual cell formats, especially early in the development, but these things kind of went severe and lined out a little maybe quicker than some of the models had, which is a good thing for tornadoes. A good thing if you don't want tornadoes. There was a little light rotation back in here as it came across actually right by our camera, but not seeing that as much. It looks more broad than it did earlier, so it didn't really tighten up. But this area around Muddy Creek over towards West Sunbury, this is your biggest hail core right in here. These blues and bright pinks and purples are indicating some sizable hail, and we've seen a pretty consistent report from hail. Here's a new one of 1-inch hail just north of the Newcastle area in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, and then one here along 79 of 1-inch hail. So pretty consistent 1-inch hail reports coming in at this storm. It's being warned for even larger hail with the returns that we're seeing. Down the line now towards Punxsutawney, Big Run, and areas along 119. That area up towards Sandy is under the gun now for this heavy storm. This one in particular may have a stronger wind threat as it's starting to appear like it's bowing out a little bit, indicating some higher winds here pushing out along especially the leading edge of this storm. And then quickly approaching the Katanning area here with storms to your north, 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Near Mahoning, New Bethlehem, Rimmersburg, Bradley's Bend Township, and then the big hailstorm here in West Sunbury. Storms here severe, approaching the State College area, now up towards Clearfield, and now along and north, just north of I-80 here in this part of Pennsylvania, Clearfield over to Snowshoe, Beech Creek, Lock Haven, Jersey Shore, and Williamsport. The severe storms now are on the west side of Williamsport. And then these storms here near Scranton are non-severe right now. Watching this area, especially south and west of Scranton, for severe possibilities. Scranton into the north, I think the storms are going to be a lot more isolated for the severe weather. We do have a special weather statement, though, for this line of storms and cluster of storms that's moving through Mossville, Sweet Valley, Lemon, and Knoxon, and headed generally towards the Wilkes-Barre area. This is for 50-mile-an-hour winds and pea-sized hail, so just under kind of the severe threshold. That's going to be a storm to watch. You can see, again, these bright purple areas maybe is going to be where the hail is most impactful, and that area is generally headed towards the Wilkes-Barre area, sinking south and east. I think Scranton, this special weather statement, I think is pretty accurate, this box here. I think for downtown Scranton, these storms are mostly going to slide to the west and southwest of you. So if you're in the Scranton area and north, I think you're looking a lot better for your severe chances. There are some storms further up in Pennsylvania, towards Hartford and Gibson in Pennsylvania, that are worth watching. Some heavy cells here along I-81, but no severe warnings up there. The big ones are these ones here, back from the areas around Williamsport, Lock Haven, Clearfield, Punxsutawney, Sandy, over towards Grove City, and now coming into the areas north of Kittanning and Butler in Pennsylvania. A little bit of back building too, we're seeing here. So areas that just had some severe weather and 1-inch hail reports are getting another round of at least some showers right now. We'll have to keep an eye. There are some thunder icons here that are popping up. So it keeps an eye on some flooding potential, especially if those start to train over areas. Okay, we just got a hail report from the area just by our traffic camera of 1-inch hail by a trained weather spotter. So I think that was hail that we saw on the screen here a few minutes ago on our traffic cam with the white coming down. Heavy rain and hail we saw for a decent amount of time there, as that helps verify here that we had a pretty big hailstorm. So areas north of Butler, up 308 and 80 and 38 towards West Sunbury. This area here is your largest hail core. Right in here, coming in towards Boydstown, Grease City, and Jamesonville. Next up for the big hail core is going to be North Oakland, St. Joe, Shicora, and then down towards Nicola, Worthington, Furnace Run, Browns Crossroads, and eventually into the Kittanning area. North of Kittanning, more storms with big hail right in this area towards Baum Station and Snyderville. That area here, you can see some another hail core. That's going to be generally headed south and east towards Echo, Rural Valley, and Barnard. Another hail core here near Phoenix, Pennsylvania, headed towards Smicksburg and Wells. And then storms now going through the Punxsutawney area, so Punxsutawney up to Big Run and Troutville, seeing your heaviest storms right now. Again, if you're just tuning in, we have a line of severe thunderstorms producing heavy rain, high winds, and large hail. Quarter-size hail here in Brockport coming in. So this is probably that area here that's now towards Luthersburg and Rockton and Chestnut Grove. State College, where the Weather Service is now under a severe thunderstorm warning for 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. As this gets along and south of I-80, it's going to get into a little bit more populated areas too. State College, Altoona, Hollidaysburg. It's already affecting some more populated areas here around Lock Haven and Williamsport. Williamsport, non-severe thunderstorms moving through at the moment. We did get a severe thunderstorm warning now. They upgraded the cell that's near the Wilkes-Barre area. This storm is now showing signs of hail, 1-inch and 60-mile-an-hour winds. That's coming into the area right now around Sweet Valley and Pikes Creek and Pritchard. And that's going to be headed south and east towards the Wilkes-Barre area. So right now we have 2 flash flood warnings, a couple special weather statements, and then a whole line of 7 severe thunderstorm warnings. This one is the only one that's actually right now not connected. All the other ones are in a cluster of cells. These cells here kind of popped out ahead of the line. Now coming towards the Wilkes-Barre area. Some other cells here are just entering the most northern part of New Jersey, but they look like they're weakening significantly. These ones are the one to watch here around 118 and Sweet Valley. They're sliding south and east towards the Wilkes-Barre area with up to 1-inch hail. And you can see here on the last couple scans, we have seen some brighter pinks, purples, and even a couple blue returns. That is indicating a larger hail core here that's developed to the north and west of Wilkes-Barre, moving southeast. So if you're in the areas around Wilkes-Barre, Kingston Plains, Fairview, Nanacoke, Bear Creek Village, Shicks Shanty, or Shicks Cine, hopefully I'm saying that name right. Those areas are under the threat here for large hail, all the way down towards Whitehaven, Dorrance, and Freeland. This is up here in the Poconos, and the areas around Wilkes-Barre. Large hail possible and 60-mile-an-hour winds. Williamsport right now, you're lucking out if you're in the Williamsport area. We have strong thunderstorms coming through the areas around Williamsport and Lock Haven, but right now they're sub-severe. So that's a good thing here for the moment. We'll have to track those though as they head further south and east towards Lewisburg and Bloomsburg next. Large area of severe thunderstorms headed towards State College, right actually close to the radar site here around Snowshoe in Pennsylvania, Schuylertown, over towards Bellefonte where 99 and 80 intersect. That area is all under severe thunderstorm warnings, as well as areas out in front. So into the Altoona area, Tyrone, Milroy, State College, all be... If you're down here towards Tyrone and Altoona, you might have a few minutes to get your car in the garage. So now's kind of your last chance here. And you can see the heavy cells here moving now east and south of Punxsutawney. Right here in the Winslow area and out on 219 towards Kerwinsville, Glen Campbell, New Washington are all next in line. Pretty sizable area of hail and wind here coming along 219. And then big storms continuing here on the west side of Pennsylvania. Now have gone through West Sunbury and now into the Chicora area. North Oakland, I think we mentioned them a little bit ago. Those are some sizable hail returns right here. These bright pinks and purples and then the blues are indicating a large hail that's aloft in the air that the radar is picking up. We may even be able to see here if we can grab it. So a lot of times we can use the correlation coefficient to see non-meteorological targets, say for tracking tornadoes. But here I can also use it to see if it's picking up hail core, and it certainly is. So this is indicating here, right in the North Oakland area, some large hail that's aloft in the storm. Just now crossing the areas along PA 68, probably sliding into the St. Joe area. This is some sizable hail, and that's going to be coming down towards the Nicola, Worthington, Cowansville, Furnace Run, and eventually here into the Katanning area within a few minutes. Put this into motion and we can see if we can find other hail cores like that. Probably some hail up in here around 210. Trade City. That so far is, I think, the biggest hail core we've seen. And now coming into the areas here around the radar site. Here you go, picking up some larger hail with the CC in this area here along and south of I-80. So that's going to be a hail core headed towards Tylersville in a matter of minutes, towards Boonville in Pennsylvania, Loganton and Livonia coming up next. Then it's pretty much into the mountains here. So once it gets on the other side of the mountains, it's going to be headed towards the Mifflinburg area. And eventually that might sink down towards Lewisburg. And then we can also check the storm here near Wilkes-Barre. Area around Sweet Valley has a pretty sizable hail core. You can see some CC drops there, indicating some of the larger hail. The storm isn't quite as punchy looking as it was a few minutes ago when it was warned. You can see here it had a pretty good burst of purples, and that has shrunk in size considerably here over the last couple scans. This is the area that around Wilkes-Barre and kind of southwest of Scranton that I kind of put on the lower end threshold of severe weather. I think I've said it a couple times, but I think north and east of Scranton, it's going to be hard to get severe weather developing just because it was cooler and rainier up in here. They've had rain and storms all day, and it's been a lot cloudier up here in kind of eastern New York State, down into the Hartford area. It's been a lot more stable for severe weather versus back into central and southwestern Pennsylvania, where it was up in the 80s and sunny. You can see those hail reports, they keep coming across. Here is one for 1.25 inch hail, and that's in West Sunbury. So we saw that. Slippery Rock, where we saw a large hail core, that actually met that 1.75 inch. That was so that storm is kind of verifying its hail core and being warned for that that hail core. Now coming into the areas around Worthington and Nicola up in here. So if you're out ahead of this, please be in a sturdy structure away from windows, especially when you have close to 2-inch hail and a possibility for higher winds. You can see those kind of returns showing up here too. Also use the vertically integrated liquid to see these hail cores pretty much corresponding. I think that is our biggest hail core so far. We're going to get a little contamination in here because these storms here are moving through the radar site, so they're not looking up into the storm. It's great to be close to the radar for seeing what's happening at the low level for tornadoes and things like that, and seeing how the storm is interacting with those lowest levels of the atmosphere. It's not so great if you want to look up into the storm and see what the mid-level storm structure is doing. So we'll have to wait a little bit until those get to the other side of the radar site towards State College to get a better look at those. That's why those returns also aren't quite as bright, because the radar isn't shooting up into the hail core at the moment. But further out, you can see there's some hail around Lock Haven and Point South, and then some hail possibly around the Picture Rocks area near Moreland, between Picture Rocks and Moreland. That is headed down towards Greenwood and Bloomsburg in general. It is good to see that those areas around Lewisburg and Williamsport haven't had the severe warnings, so those are maybe sub-severe, and they dropped the warning south of Lock Haven. And you can see those did have some larger hail cores as they came across the areas around Lock Haven and Jersey Shore. but those have shrunk, so that's a good sign. This area in the north and east side of Pennsylvania seems to, in general, the storms are on a bit of a downtrend, but we'll see if that picks back up. And then you can see how this hail core has developed. And is now approaching the Wilkes-Barre area with some strong hail. So Sweet Valley, Mossville, hail now probably in towards Patterson Grove, Bloomingdale, Muhlenberg. This is quickly headed towards West Nanticoke and Nanticoke, and then also headed into the Wilkes-Barre area here in a matter of minutes. But especially this area just to the west of Wilkes-Barre, that's going to be your strongest winds as well as your hail possibilities. Maybe some small hail up towards Ransom and Dallas. It looks like for this storm, the largest hail is going to be in this area just kind of south and west of Wilkes-Barre right now, generally headed down towards the Nanticoke and Fairview area. If you're in downtown Wilkes-Barre, this may just skirt to your south, so that would be a good thing because that's a pretty densely populated area. But still, if you're in this area here, this is your general larger hail core sliding south and east, maybe as far south as the Dorrance, and tried to say it earlier, Shikshantini. Not saying it right still. But if you're in that town, hunker down here as these hail cores are passing. In addition to the hail, you got possibilities for up to 60-mile-an-hour winds. Some pretty large hail right up here near Creasetown and Crease Mills and the Plymouth, Pennsylvania area here. That's going to be an area that we should get some confirmation from. Back here, 1-inch hail reports north of Punxsutawney. So this one here, as this storm has come across through Warren and now through the Grove City, through Slippery Rock area, this one is the storm I'm seeing that has produced up to a couple times up to the 1 3/4 inch hail. So that's golf ball size hail. And this storm is still being warned for that, as it's now coming into the areas here just north and west of Worthington here in Pennsylvania, but right around the Foster's Mill area, basically between Worthington and Brown's Crossroads. This is your large hail core. It does seem to be shrinking in size a little bit, so that's a good news too. The only problem is as storms kind of weaken, if they were suspending large hail in their updrafts and then those updrafts weaken, then it's just going to dump down, and that's not going to be a great situation for someone out there. We have more storms that are formed behind this first line of storms, so we actually have more storms. Our traffic cam here down in the other corner is in this area here. It's facing away from the storms, but so we're seeing it get darker here as these new storms are sliding south and east. We should be able to see them as they cross the traffic cam. But it's been an interesting traffic cam here. We saw some hail actually coming down on the traffic cam and in the view, and then heavy rain, and then that quickly cleared and it was actually sunny for a brief moment. And then now you can see the secondary line of storms is pushing in. These may have some hail here as well. Right now they're non-severe storms, but they're going to add insult to injury. And especially this area up here now, just to the north and west of Slippery Rock, might have another hail core. Slippery Rock had a report of 1.75 inch hail. They may be getting back into at least the heavy rain and hail as these slide south and east here near Slippery Rock and Plain Grove. These tend to be a little bit on an uptrend, so we'll have to watch and see if they add a warning there. They did add a warning for the storms that are back behind our original large hailstorm You can see a pretty sizable hailstorm here near Eau Claire and Bonus. That stretches out towards the Callensburg area and Parker here in Pennsylvania. That's also being warned for 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Some non-severe storms up towards Titusville and Orange are in Oil City right now. But so far, this is kind of our main line of storms. Basically between Lock Haven down to State College, now south of Clearfield, approaching Indiana, and between Indiana and Punxsutawney. And then in the Katanning area, back towards Grove City and Slippery Rock. That's the biggest cluster that's had a history of large hail, and haven't seen any wind reports yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get some damaging wind reports out of this storm either. Especially this area here that's come through the Punxsutawney area and now approaching Dixonville up to Bigler. This area has a little bit of a bowing segment, and it's had that for a little bit. So this area here I can see having some higher winds, closer to that 60-mile-an-hour wind that the warning goes out for. And then just like a lot of the other storms, you can see the hail cores in here in the purples. So that's indicating some large hail. Probably in the New Millport area, down towards New Washington. And this area is all headed down towards McFerrin, Glenhope, Oak Ridge, Henderson, and over towards the Sanborn area. Eventually this is going to head down into the areas around Phillipsburg, Tyrone, Bellwood, and then the Altoona area. Decent hail core here coming towards Mifflinburg, right now around the Livonia area. So that's one to watch as it heads south and east towards Mifflinburg, Harleton, and Laurelton in north central Pennsylvania. And then also checking back with our friends in Wilkes-Barre. Wilkes-Barre has the large hail storm here coming through really right now. Especially the areas on Wilkes-Barre south towards Ashley and Fairview. That's where your largest hail core looks like it's going to be. So hopefully the areas right around the downtown Wilkes-Barre have been spared from the largest hail, but this area just south of it, of the city here towards Ashley and Sugar Notch, headed towards Fairview, is going to be your larger hail core. Probably pass through the Nanacoke area. It did look a little more impressive when it was up here by Sweet Valley and Lehman. So it's now coming through this area here towards Fairview. And then next up after that is Bear Creek Village, Whitehaven, maybe down towards the Freeland area, and then over towards Thornhurst. Other storms coming through Scranton are non-severe near the Old Forge area. And then north of Scranton, just some general thunderstorms. That traffic cam is getting pretty dark. We'll hop back over. Yeah, some pretty good storms here now coming in. Our traffic cam again sits right about there. Our traffic cam sits right about there, and I think it's looking south, southeast. So it's in this direction. So the storms are approaching it now near Plain Grove, Slippery Rock, and Harlansburg. It's getting really dark in that traffic cam. So it's about to get dumped on again. This area had close to 2-inch hail with their last storm, and now just getting another round. The storm looking a little less impressive here around Katanning. Still a decent hail core just north of Katanning right now. Good news is we're seeing a little bit of a drop. We're not seeing those bright pinks and also not seeing those blue colors. So a good overall downtrend in this cell. It also doesn't look as structurally tight as it was earlier. It even had a little bit of a appendage, a hook at one point. Still some large hail north and west of Katanning. And then also to this area here around Eau Claire. Down to Parker. That area has some sizable hail as well. In this area here by Parker and West Freedom. That may be getting into the Toby area, headed towards Rimmersburg, New Athens or Athens, Fredericksburg, Bruin, all areas here as this storm heads south and east. So areas here around Katanning may get actually 2 rounds. I think we called out the Rimmersburg and New Bethlehem area earlier in the stream. Storms have already moved south of you guys, but you're about to get into another round of storms here on the backside that are also severe warned for more gusty winds and then also more hail from the area around Parker and Toby, headed south and east through Rimmersburg, New Bethlehem, Hawthorne, Brady's Bend Township, Mahoning. That area is all under the gun for another round of severe weather. So right now those strong winds and hail are approaching Henderson, coming into the Hootsdale area in Pennsylvania, Glenhope, Urbana, headed towards Coalport, Janesville, Blandburg, St. Lawrence, and then eventually down into the I-99 corridor from Altoona, Juniata, Bellwood, Tyrone, Warriors Mark, Bald Eagle, up to State College. The area that I pointed out a few minutes ago that looked like it had some larger hail approaching Mifflinsburg is now warned again. So that storm is headed towards Mifflinsburg and Middleburg and eventually down to the Chapman area. Large hail between Mifflinburg, Harlowtown, and Laureltown coming into that area here around Pleasant Grove as well. Right now there's not many towns up in here, it's over the mountains, but as this hail core drifts south and east, that's going to be coming over the mountains here into Pleasant Grove in a matter of minutes. And then eventually into the Mifflinburg area. Some non-severe but still strong storms coming through Lewisburg and Greenwood right now. And then the other strong hailstorm right now passing Fairview, Glen Summit, Bear Creek Village. For that larger hail core now here south and east of Wilkes-Barre on 476. So if you're coming out of Wilkes-Barre, not a great idea to travel south and east at the moment. That's headed southeast towards Leonardsville, Penn Lake Park, Oker Mill, Shades Glen, all up next to see that larger hail core. We'll have to see if they extend the warning. Leonardsville right now is outside of the warning. But this is in general headed down towards Leonardsville, Whitehaven, and Split Rock with the larger hail core. As it continues south and east, basically now kind of a long route, or I-476. So it's 476 from Wilkes-Barre down towards Whitehaven is not a great trip right now. And then just some general thunderstorms here now east and south of Scranton. Let's see. Should be getting, yeah, we're getting the heavy rain now in our traffic cam. Probably not the heaviest rain, as I think our traffic cam is right in here. But just north of that, up towards Jacksville, Moore's Corner, that's going to be where your hail is right now. But there you can see it's this traffic cam in the matter of an hour or so has had quite a change of weather from one storm with hail and high winds to sun, and then back to, you can see the difference there between the storm and the sun, how bright it is on the top right versus how dark it is here now down with the traffic cam. A lot of water came down in those storms earlier too, so now we're just adding more water onto the roadways, so definitely take it easy. This traffic cam is a PennDOT camera along I-79. Yeah, I wanted to double check. Our traffic cam is kind of right in this area around Jacksville. So that hail core should be sliding just north and east of our traffic cam, which would be off to the left. But Slippery Rock already had large hail earlier, now in another severe thunderstorm warning for large hail. And yeah, they have warned this storm, so they've now warned it for 1.25-inch hail and also 60-mile-an-hour winds. So this area here has a bunch of overlapping severe thunderstorm warnings, with storms going through now, storms that already went through, and then some new round of storms up here from Limestone over to Toby over to Slippery Rock are now severe warned as well. That could create a little bit of a flooding issue in this area. Since we've had now kind of one round of rain, now we have had 2 rounds of rain, and now we're getting another cluster of storms here. So, especially these areas around Katanning, that area could be an area of potential flood problems here. Up towards Rural Valley, Dayton, and over towards the Punxsutawney area. So noting that this storm is looking a little weaker than it was earlier when we were tracking it. This storm had the largest hail that we've seen any reports of so far. It's definitely looking weaker, and they've noted that in the severe thunderstorm warning, that's now dropped to 1.25-inch hail, where it was previously being warned for almost 2-inch hail. But still a decent hail core between Rural Valley, Snyderville, and Dayton. And I think this has missed the downtown part at Katanning, so that's a nice thing. The hail core has slid off to the north, and I think it's missed Worthington as well. We can back up the radar here. You can see again, it was a lot more potent back here when we're seeing the bright pinks and the blues compared to now. Now as we move into motion here, now we're seeing more of the deeper reds and just purples. So we've dropped some of those blue colors, which means it's dropped the larger hail. But yes, good news is it does look like this is slid north of Worthington and just north of the Katanning area. But still some larger hail in here coming towards the Rural Valley, Plumville area. And then back here near our traffic cam is in this Plains Grove, Jacksville area. Larger hail now showing up again near Slippery Rock. Out on 173 and approaching Route 8, Pennsylvania Route 8. That you can see here now we have some more blues in this hail core. So probably some good 1 1/4 inch hail or higher coming now south and east along Route 8 and in the Slippery Rock area. Another good hail core here in Rimmersburg, New Athens, just south of Toby. And then checking on our storms over here in State College, it looks like they have some smaller hail threat, but definitely have a wind threat, as those are arcing out from the areas near Phillipsburg down towards northern Cambria. And that is going to be approaching the I-99 corridor near State College down to Tyrone and Altoona in a few minutes here. So definitely watch out for these storms. In addition to the hail, they're the ones that are producing probably 60-mile-an-hour winds. This storm here near Mifflinsburg had some hail in it. It may have peaked a little bit ago. It had a little more purples as it was back north and west of Pleasant Grove, between Livonia and Pleasant Grove. Still some small hail likely here between Mifflinburg and New Berlin, but good to see a little bit of a downtrend on here. And then a newer severe thunderstorm warning for this area here around Bloomsburg, Riverside, Washingtonville, up towards Benton and Berwick. And that warning extends all the way down into the Mount Carmel area in Pennsylvania. That's for 60-mile-an-hour winds. And then back here near Wilkes-Barre and the Poconos, they did extend the warning for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. And we're seeing more of a bow feature here too as this sinks southeast. So that indicates some higher winds here coming towards the areas around Whitehaven and Emerald Lakes, Split Rock, Leonardsville, as well as the areas down towards Sun Valley, Mount Pocono, and East Stroudsburg eventually. A new warning here to fill in the gap. This one has some small hail and some 60-mile-an-hour winds. So kind of another cluster has formed here, generally headed south and east. This is going to eventually head towards Easton, Allentown, Hamburg, Pottsville, Hazleton, East Stroudsburg, Shamokin, Selinsgrove, Sunbury are a matter of minutes here for those two towns. So now, as this storm has slid just kind of north of this camera, we're seeing a little bit of clearing again, and certainly the rain has let up a little bit. So as reflected in the SPC forecast, it looks like we are seeing, we've had some confirmation of larger hail. Haven't seen as much confirmation of damaging winds yet, but we'll see as this line continues to sink south and east. But we're seeing a large cluster here, if you're just joining us, a large cluster around the Wilkes-Barre area, extending back through Bloomsburg, Sunbury, State College, Tyrone, North Cambria, Punxsutawney, up towards Grove City, and even now building back towards Youngstown. An area of strong thunderstorms, especially the western side. We've seen more of these hail reports of 1-inch hail likely 60-mile-an-hour winds. The areas here on the north central parts of Pennsylvania have had, I think, more of the wind threat from State College over towards the Wilkes-Barre area, but certainly some larger hail is in pockets like near Mifflinsburg and near Wilkes-Barre right now. There's definitely some pockets of larger hail. And then we're seeing some back building of storms along the Pennsylvania and Ohio state line. They've also now gone severe near the Slippery Rock area and also dropping more hail reports. And this one here is now, so this area from Slippery Rock down to Katanning seems to be a bit of our hail corridor. We're seeing some larger hail here south and east of Toby. Still seeing that storm hanging on here between Dayton and Rural Valley with large hail. And then our largest hailstorm right now is following a very similar path. This was our first larger hailstorm down here by Rural Valley, and now we're seeing a second one just on the north side of Butler, headed south and east towards the Katanning area. So if the first hailstorm missed you, there may be a second chance at it. This seems to be following a eerily similar path now. From it's gone through the Slippery Rock area, and now it's approaching West Sunbury again. You can actually see the larger hail reports here around West Sunbury, where they had over an inch hail earlier. We'll have to see if there's more reports coming in from these storms. But this is going to generally head, and we can track it out here. It's pretty much headed the same motion as the last storm. You can actually see here the last storm as it came through Chicora and North Oakland. Now, if I put the radar into motion, now here's our second storm headed generally towards that same area between Chicora and North Oakland and St. Joe. North of 422 in Butler has to be aware of this storm, especially if you're driving north along Route 8 out towards Muddy Creek or up 308 towards West Sunbury. If you don't have to make that drive right now, I would hold back a little bit and just let at least this storm pass. But there's more storms here back building behind it. Slippery Rock is going to get another round of storms, and you can see that reflected in the traffic cam. You can see the rain and hail shaft of that storm off to the left, the top left. So again, the traffic cam is like right in this area here, looking south, southeast. So if we're looking like this with the traffic cam, that area here off to the left, on the screen it's our right, but on the cam it's on the left. That area is looking towards this hail core here in West Sudbury. So this area right in here. As I expected from the training of thunderstorms, we now have a flash flood warning. I know, especially for YouTube, the flash flood warnings aren't as sexy and entertaining as tornadoes and some of the other severe weather can be, but honestly, the flash flood warnings are often a lot more dangerous. Flooding kills way more people than a lot of people, I think. So make sure if you're in this area here, from Grove City down to Slippery Rock over towards Toby, turn around, don't drown. This area has a lot of hills and valleys and roads with sharp curves, so you might go around the road and then find a washout. So take it easy if you're traveling in this area. Back towards Boardman and Youngstown, we have another round of strong thunderstorms. Special weather statement for 40-mile-an-hour winds and penny-sized hail. Those are some newer storms, so they're on the uptrend. And you can see here they've actually just kind of popped up. So these ones are one to watch. You can see they're all in this area moving more east than south right now. So that's why we now have this flash flood warning. And wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this. Again, especially this area along the I-79 corridor has seen a ton of heavy rain over the last few days to a week. So it's not going to take much to overload the streams and creeks and flooded areas already with waterlogged soil and everything. So areas around Pittsburgh haven't seen a lot of rain yet, but your time is coming. Yeah, so far there's been a little bit different of storm motion. The storms here between Youngstown and Katanning have been more along a east-southeast trend, where we've seen storms kind of push out and south from the areas around Lock Haven, Punxsutawney, now through State College and Altoona. So a little, it's not much, but when you're talking about storms going over the same areas, the ones over here are not only providing severe thunderstorms again and again, but also just rain and flooding again and again. There are some back behind the main line of storms that will affect areas around Clarion up towards Oil City, but they're not showing nearly as much spunk as the storms here. So 1¼ inch hail is what they're warning this storm here for near West Sunbury, headed down towards Chicora. In this area here, you can see the blues and purples and pinks. That's indicating a decent sized hail core here. This storm is still showing a little bit of hail towards Plumville, but it's been dropped from the warning, so that's a good sign. And you can see a lot less of those purples. Still maybe there's some small hail between Plumville and Wells, but finally this storm that's had a history of producing close to 2-inch hail has finally come down. A new severe thunderstorm warning basically covers that whole area again, and we're seeing large hail cores here between West Sunbury and Chicora, around New Bethlehem, and then coming back into the Parker area, as well as north of Eau Claire, and then possibly even some more small hail back towards Slippery Rock with another round of storms. Also, this area here near Harlansburg and Kennedy Mill looks like it has some sizable hail in here. This one now is headed towards our traffic cam that's like right in this area here. So we're gonna get maybe a good look at a hail core if we stay on and reset this traffic cam. And you can see it's kind of getting dark again on the traffic cam. That's for this storm here that's coming in probably a matter of minutes here. So our traffic cam is like somewhere right in here by the Jacksville area, and it's gotten missed by the largest hail cores. Another one up here towards Slippery Rock. This one though is more on its path, so we should get a full thunderstorm here in a few minutes on this traffic cam. But again, I-79 right now is not looking fun. This storm probably going to get upgraded to another severe thunderstorm. It's showing a larger hail core coming in towards the Bessemer area. This is right along the Ohio and Pennsylvania state line. So probably some larger hail affecting Hillsville, Bessemer, and New Middleton in Ohio. And there it is right there. Severe thunderstorm warning. Now affecting the areas for Newcastle, West Pittsburgh, New Beaver, Elwood City, Mount Ayr, and coming across here towards Newcastle now. So large hail possible right in this Bessemer area over towards Edinburgh, and then affecting the Newcastle area pretty quickly as this moves east-southeast. We can get a speed on this one. Moving east at 50 miles an hour. So quarter-size hail possible coming into the Newcastle area momentarily. This is a larger warning that covers quite a bit of these cells, since there's actually a lot of them here. The one coming towards our traffic cam right in there looks pretty powerful. Some other hail cores north and west of Toby, north and west of Dayton in Ohio, and then coming here into the Newcastle area and west of Youngstown along the Pennsylvania state line, and then maybe even another one up here towards Grove City. And then this right now is our biggest hail core, sliding towards the Katanning area. So Rural Valley, Katanning, back towards the areas north side of Butler, and all under the gun here. This is just an interesting look here. Just looking at the screen, how many areas here can see some damaging hail, along with possible other severe thunderstorm effects like strong winds and flooding. Taking a closer look at this storm here coming through Chicora and Karnes City right now. Just checking it, it has maybe a little light broad rotation, but not seeing anything that's noteworthy here at the moment. Have to watch this area north of Butler, showing a little bit of an appendage. It's a little bit of broad rotation right now. Now south of West Sunbury, but one to watch as this slides along an area that hasn't had a lot of storms. There hasn't been a lot of storms down in the Pittsburgh area, immediate to Pittsburgh. So a storm like this has a potential to tap some uncontaminated air. There we go. Get the traffic cam out of the way for a second. A storm like this has a potential to tap some uncontaminated air, and just watching a little bit of rotation there near Chicora right now. Nothing, again, nothing immediate that we have to worry about, but something to just watch here as it comes towards Katanning and Rural Valley. This area up here towards Eau Claire and Emlenton, coming towards Parker again, has some larger hail. This area up here along I-80 likely has some larger hail. And then I want to pull back up our traffic cam. Newcastle. Alright, we should just be like just north of this camera. Our camera's like right here. So just north of the camera along I-79, probably getting some hail. Maybe you'll start to see it here against the camera. If I keep looking down, it's like I have the camera on my other monitor. So I have the radar on our monitor, our main monitor here, and then I have a camera on the other monitor in the studio. So if I keep looking down, it's just to watch with you guys the camera. Here comes the heavy rain now. You can see the white kind of mist coming down if you look out along the highway there. Good news is I don't see as much traffic as we did earlier, so if people are staying indoors right now, that would be a nice thing, and not traveling up along 79 here. So just a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings. We haven't touched the eastern ones as much. They've been on a downward trend, but still gusty winds now coming into the areas with possible 1-inch hail now through Tyrone, coming into the areas just north side of Altoona, especially for wind gusts. This area has had that area that's been bowing out. It's going to be coming along 22 towards Petersburg, Donation, Huntington, and Williamsburg eventually here in Pennsylvania. Maybe some small hail, especially in that area just coming down 22 there towards Petersburg. There you can see some really heavy rain. That the horizon line is starting to get kind of blurry and faded. So there's some really heavy rain now coming down on this traffic camera. And again, we'll watch it like we did before for some larger hail. I think we were able to kind of confirm what the Weather Service had for 1-inch hail earlier. So probably the heaviest hail is just off to the top left, the darker side of this traffic cam. I think it may have missed it again. But again, our traffic cam's kind of looking like this, south and east. So this is that darker side. And then over here is where the sun is still showing a little bit. And then the highway's right in this area here, so we're kind of looking at this bend, I think. But, so the strongest hail probably just missed us. It's headed into the Jacksville, West Liberty area, and may slide into into the Slippery Rock area. Let's see if this one can get us. I think we have another chance of seeing some big hail coming into this area along 422 and 79. This one is a severe thunderstorm right over Newcastle right now, headed towards Portersville and Elport and New Beaver. Also back towards New Bedford. Still a strong cell near Chicora. This is along and north of 422. Chicora headed down towards Worthington and Katanning. More severe storms near Ringgold and Porter, up towards Toby, and this area here north side of Parker is another area for larger hail. I would expect to see some larger hail reports from this area near Emlenton and Parker. That's also along I-80 here. And then back through the areas around Slippery Rock, West Sunbury again with another round of storms. So a busy night, no tornado warnings so far, as the tornado chances are somewhat lower, with the primary threats for high winds and hail. Those are coming across the areas around Barry, headed towards Huntington along 22, and then eventually towards Menno, Belleville, McKelvey's Fort, and McVeigh Town here in central Pennsylvania. And then back east, on the eastern side of the state here, we have more severe storms right now near Hazleton and Freeland, up along I-80 towards Whitehaven, and then down towards Sun Valley, Reeders, eventually here into the East Stroudsburg area. This area is the cells that had some larger hail, possibly back towards the Wilkes-Barre area. Not seeing as big of hail cores, but some of these areas where the winds are gusting out can produce those 60-mile-an-hour damaging winds. One of those, I think, is coming towards the East Stroudsburg area, maybe eventually down towards Bangor and Layton in Pennsylvania here. If these storms continue to hold together, they're going to eventually be down into Allentown, Nazareth, Easton, Kutztown, and Hamburg in Pennsylvania. We'll see if they hold together. But certainly if you're north and west of those communities that I just mentioned, and between those communities and Wilkes-Barre, your chances of having some strong to severe thunderstorms is increased. Right now, areas around Shenandoah, Shamokin. Good news is the storms right now that are headed towards the the Harrisburg area aren't showing as nearly as strong as they were earlier, and are generally on a downward trend here in the Susquehanna River Valley between Sealands Grove and Lewiston and State College. So we'll have to see as those storms continue to head south, southeast towards Harrisburg. But right now, Harrisburg's looking decent. We can put this into motion too and see. Yeah, generally a downtrend. Although you can also see the storms here near Tyrone that are kind of gusting and bowing out, headed towards Huntington, Mount Union, and maybe Lewiston. But the storms here between Bloomsburg and now down towards Selinsgrove, they have definitely weakened quite significantly. Still, those areas around Hazleton are bowing out, and the ones that we covered near East Stroudsburg. So those ones are areas to watch for the severe winds, but not seeing as many hail cores in this eastern segment of storms. So all of our action, I think, for the most part, is back here on the western side of Pennsylvania. Checking on this cell again near Chicora, a little bit of rotation, but not seeing enough rotation that it's concerning at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on it. We can back this cell up. The good news is the hail cores come down on it. Yeah, it had a little bit more broad rotation a couple scans ago. Kind of right in here along 68 that we were watching with a little bit of a stinger. And it still has that a little bit, but it's definitely kind of choked off its rotation for now. Still some strong hail up here towards Adams and Brown's Crossroads. You can see those blues and pinks and purples. That's indicating some higher end hail. I don't think we've had anything over 2 inches, at least reported, but we've had some areas that have been close to that with inch and a quarter, and about inch and 3/4 inch hail. So let's see, our camera again is like right in here. So probably getting into some heavier rain again here in just a minute in that camera. Non-severe part of the storm. The stronger storms now here are north of Newcastle, Sunset Valley, Clover, up towards New Wilmington. That's a pretty decent sized hail core here with the pinks and purples. And then one that's now down here, now south and east of Newcastle, near Energy and Princeton. That one's generally headed towards Elport, Prospect, and Portersville at the moment. So a new severe thunderstorm warning covering that same area for ping pong ball size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. That recovers the area from Katanning down through Rural Valley and up towards Punxsutawney. Just rounds of these scattered storms in the same areas, basically from Toby down to Katanning, Rural Valley, Dayton, Rain, and Punxsutawney are all in this new warning. And that just extends out. It's for the cells that are back north and west of Katanning, but also the ones that are now approaching Limestone and Toby and Monroe and back through Slippery Rock. Just a couple more rounds of severe weather looks possible there. These storms have some small hail and gusty winds coming through the areas around Huntington and Donation right now. Certainly some gustier winds in there. They're going to be approaching Mount Union in a few minutes, McVeigh and Granville, and also Lewistown in Pennsylvania. All along 22 here in central Pennsylvania. So if you're just joining us right now, the storms have been kind of in the I-80 corridor, and now sinking a little bit south of a lot of I-80. They still haven't affected the larger cities. If you're watching and you're not from Pennsylvania, those would be Pittsburgh, the Harrisburg and central Pennsylvania area, and then the Philadelphia area down here, with some decent cities here like Lancaster, York, Reading, Allentown. The biggest city I think they've affected so far, probably in this area, is State College up through Altoona, and then the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area has been affected a little bit. But otherwise, they've affected a lot of the smaller towns and smaller cities between Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Youngstown, but they have not affected the areas that have some of the highest population in Pennsylvania, as well as they've definitely hit the I-80 corridor so far pretty hard, but they have not affected the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which is I-76 here, running between Philadelphia and Youngstown area, between the state line here, between Pittsburgh and Youngstown. So that area has been clear of storms so far too. In the matter of the next hour or two, we'll start to see that change. I'll clear this out. The storms from Scranton over towards Altoona have generally headed a little more southeast. So we should start to see some of those areas from Allentown to down to Harrisburg get affected by at least some general thunderstorms. Even if not severe, that's going to cause some travel issues. The storms here, though, back towards Youngstown and northwest Pennsylvania, have been moving more, say, east-southeast. So that's why they haven't made a lot of progress getting south into the Pittsburgh area or southwest Pennsylvania so far. So far, they've been basically training over the same area here in western Pennsylvania, and we have already seen a flash flood warning issued already. Would not be surprised to see some more flash flooding. Especially to the areas along and north of 422. I think that's where your biggest flood threat is going to be, at least in the near term. So we'll zoom back in. I would say generally this whole area that's had a severe thunderstorm warning, from Punxsutawney up towards Sandy, over towards Clarion, and then over towards the state line. This whole area, I think, is in a little bit higher risk of a flood threat at the moment. You can see there's already some flash flood warnings around Grove City, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some more flash flood warnings come out for this area. They've just had rounds of these heavy rain and thunderstorms with hail as well, so would not be surprised to see those continue. So now some strong storms approaching Katanning, and the area between Katanning and Mahoning. That's that cell that we've been watching with a little weak rotation. Its hail core is still staying together, headed generally south and southeast towards Mahoning, Templeton, Snyderville, and probably again affecting the rural valley and Dayton areas, as well as areas just on the north side of Katanning. I think this is the third, maybe fourth time right now that the downtown Katanning area has just been missed by like large hail producing thunderstorms. So it looks like you're going to get one more miss in there, as well as areas towards Worthington along 422. But eventually that's going to change here, as we do have storms that are sinking a little more south. Those are going to come through the areas between Worthington, Katanning, Herman, Butler, Prospect. And we're starting to see some heavier rain here moving in. There's a rain shaft that's like straight ahead on the camera. So the camera's right about here. So I think we're watching this rain shaft. If the camera is sitting right in here, moving just east of the highway there, that's looking, I think, about right. But it's raining right now in this camera, so maybe some hail up in there too, to the now on the left side of our camera. And then still some heavy rain and hail down on 79 towards Portersville. Plain Grove and Harlansburg. Still some more hail cores coming in this way along 79, along US 19. Those are all moving south and east as well. And then finally, it looks like the Grove City area is finally getting a little bit of drier weather. So that's nice to see as these storms have pushed a little bit south of I-80 now and hopefully can stay that way. New severe thunderstorm warning for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds covers the cells that are around Clarion, Monroe, over towards Brockway. There's some large hail cores in here near Limestone and maybe north of I-80 west of Brockway. Those are going to be bringing some more large hail. And then still some general thunderstorms down here towards Rain, but you're in the severe warnings for the cells that are back on the west side of that warned area. They've shrunk the warning down a little bit here as this general part of the line is weakening, which is nice to see. But this area from Huntington over toward Menno and eventually probably grazing Lewistown, coming in towards Granville and Mount Union. This area is a pretty strong cell still. Maybe some small hail up in here towards Menlo or Menno, and maybe a little bit here towards Huntington. But that one also has a gusty wind potential. You can see it has that bow look to it, with some stronger winds gusting out. Non-severe storms now, they've dropped a lot of the severe weather on the eastern side. So that's been nice to see. Seeing if we can get a good... There's a bit of a radar hole in this part of Pennsylvania. I have to use a radar from South Jersey or a radar from State College. It'd be really nice if you are in New Jersey to have a radar site around Scranton and Wilkes-Barre and East Stroudsburg. If they put a radar site like between these cities, right in there, would be a really nice radar site. This area, it doesn't have a lot of severe weather, like, you know, back in the plains and the south, but it's still not the greatest. We're seeing from the two radar sites here down in South Jersey and the one near State College, we're seeing pretty far up in the storms. So we're not getting the best look at these, but still looks like they've dropped the severe warning. But still some strong storms between Hazleton headed towards the Allentown area. I'd watch out for some strong gusty winds here between Allentown and Easton and Hamburg. That area there has some stronger winds still in it. At least the hail core is coming down, so that's a good sign there. And then watching the hail core come down, you can see back here those purples versus now we're seeing a lot less of the purples. They may even just it'll be interesting to see if they even continue a warning here. They may for the stronger winds, but the good news is the hail threat, I think, is coming down. So if you're in the areas around Center, Seville, Tuscarora, even down towards Mount Union and eventually over towards the Newport area, I think your hail potential is coming down, which that's always a good thing, especially as it gets closer to some of those populated areas around Harrisburg, Mechanicsville, Carlisle, eventually into those areas. So right now, it does seem like our concentration of severe storms is shifting from general thunderstorms in the eastern half of the state of Pennsylvania to the severe threat that's still back in the Pittsburgh area and yet to come through Pittsburgh. Just a ton of hail cores. You have the ones up here near Clarion with hail, the ones here with near Katanning with hail, and then back towards the areas north of Butler, and then back into the area around Slippery Rock and the areas around Newcastle all have some large hail potential. Haven't seen a lot of downtrending in these storms yet. but we can take a look here too. They're all severe warned, and they just have kind of storms taking over for each other. So back at the beginning of the radar site, there's different storms that had hail potential, and now as we move forward, there's just new storms with hail potential. Some of the hail potential towards the Punxsutawney area seems to be downtrending. That's because the areas around Punxsutawney and east of Katanning have now had rounds of thunderstorms that have soaked up a lot of the potential instability. Again, though, the storms have not made a lot of southern progress, so there's some untapped instability, especially south of 422, towards the Butler, Katanning areas, and between Butler, Katanning, Beaver Falls, and the Pittsburgh area has a decent amount of untapped instability. Some larger storms still north of the 422 corridor, now coming through Newcastle right now, through Slippery Rock, around our traffic camera. So we can see that. Haven't seen the large hail like we saw originally when the first storm went through. We did see some sizable hail in the traffic cam. But you can see, though, there's some lightning. And you can see the ponding on the roadway, the wake that the cars are leaving. This area has definitely had rounds of heavy rain, so be careful if you're traveling there tonight. You can see like the wash on behind the truck. And the lightning's picking up quite a bit. I think it's for the storms that are just north and west of this traffic cam, up in the Slippery Rock area. Wanted to take a look at the area around Katanning again. Yeah, there was a little rotation on that storm, but it is basically gone now. Still a good punchy storm with some hail towards the Mahoning area and a decent amount of lightning with that. Just checking some of these other storms. Not seeing a lot. Some gusty winds in there. Now approaching the area between Chicora and Prospect, just on the north and west sides of Butler. And then not seeing much in rotation back here either. So that's good news, is the tornado threat seems to be holding in check. Have not had any tornado warnings. That doesn't mean that a severe thunderstorm can't produce tornadoes, and sometimes do without warning, but so please take any severe thunderstorm warnings seriously. Yeah, the lightning is really picking up, I think because it's also getting darker. As evening is continuing here, we're seeing a lot brighter flashes of lightning here in this camera. Especially just behind the camera and just to the east of this. This cell here between Newcastle and Harlansburg looks like it has some decent sized hail, as well as the area in this cell down towards West Pittsburgh and Energy. This will generally be along the I-79 corridor in a few minutes, so that is a cell to watch. They pushed the warning now for 1.5 inches hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds now south. So up to ping pong ball size hail. And it's for severe thunderstorms. Severe thunderstorm located near Newcastle, moving east at 50. So they've extended this severe thunderstorm warning to the south. So it's really covering this area here. There's a lot of overlapping severe thunderstorms, but it's for the hail core that's moving now along 422. That's going to affect areas like Pottersville, Prospect, a little more populated areas too, along 422 here. So 422, right now this cell is from the areas just east of Newcastle down to the areas just north of New Beaver. But that's going to be headed generally towards Harlansville, Muddy Creek, Portersville, Prospect, Butler, Herman, and maybe into the Chicora area again. So if you live in those areas, please take the warning seriously. That is a larger hail core, actually two of them. Some larger hail in here, approaching the energy area right now, probably crossing over the energy area right now, and then the areas up here towards Princeton, Kennedy Mill, Rose Point. Next in line are Jacksville, Portersville, Sherwood Park, West Liberty, Hickory Corner, Middle Lancaster, Prospect, Fisher Heights, Butler, East Butler, Boydstown, North Oakland, St. Joe, Herman, Great Belt, Renfrew, and Whitestown. So if I didn't say your town name, hopefully you just know some of the towns that are around yours, and then you can kind of gauge where you are compared to that. Areas around Slippery Rock have had rounds of heavy rain and thunder and hail. They're getting another chance at it. Maybe some small hail in here, right in the Slippery Rock area up towards Harrisville. That storm also has a potential for 60-mile-an-hour winds. Some other hailstorms near Parker right now, east of Eau Claire, and then just east of the Toby and Rimmersburg area. There's some likely small hail and gusty winds in here. And then taking a look at these northern storms, between Limestone and Corsica, larger hail here along I-80, and then between Brookville and Brockway. This cell in here has a bunch of larger hail as well. That's going to be approaching the Dubois and Reynoldsville area, as well as down towards Ramseytown. We'll see, once they get east, they're going to be interacting with a lot of rain-cooled air from the storms that now are going through areas around Allentown, approaching the Harrisburg, Lebanon, and Reading areas. Those are all non-severe. I do see a special weather statement for some of these storms here coming towards the Allentown area for pea-size hail and 40-mile-an-hour winds. But good that those are below severe limits. Still, if you're in the areas from Allentown up towards East Stroudsburg, Nazareth, Bath, Bangor, down towards Easton, and then right now affecting the areas around Palmerton, that's a decent cell here that's headed your way. So it looks like some of the heaviest rain has cleared our traffic cam. We'll go back and check this area again. Our traffic cam is like right in here, so it's still raining, just not the heaviest rain. It's right here in this Jacksville area. I think the biggest hail core is going to slide just south of us. We may be able to see it though. It should look like just a wall. And you can see there's cars putting their flashers on, so they're about to get into some really heavy rain and maybe some hail here in the Jacksville area, but I would expect that the biggest hail right now is going to go just south of this. If you're along 422, and especially the areas around 422 and 79, Sherwood Park, that area is going to get hit hard with some hail here. We have some larger hail right now affecting Kennedy Mill and Rose Point along 422, so that area here is under the gun. Also some larger hail potential down here towards Pleasant Hill, coming towards the Portersville area. If I'm not calling your city's name or town's name, it's just because we're focusing on some of the stronger storms at the moment. There's a lot of storms from really stretching across Pennsylvania, from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania on the Jersey border, all the way to the Ohio border along I-80. So it is wall-to-wall storms if you're going along I-80 right now. But the most severe weather has been back in the areas around I-80, around Youngstown and east, through the areas around Clarion, Sandy, and Punxsutawney. Those still have been our most severe areas here, and they're seeming to continue. Large hail now right along I-80 likely, around the Du Bois area, coming in towards Reynoldsburg. This storm is slowly headed south and east, so it's going to be affecting those areas around Reynoldsburg, Sandy, Du Bois, Luthersburg, Rockton, and points around there in the matter of minutes. Still seeing a lot of lightning on our traffic cam. Another storm with potential hail up here on the north side of Toby towards West Freedom and Turnipole. And then still seeing some larger hail returns here in the Slippery Rock area. And then we should start to see, I think we can see the rain curtain starting there along the traffic cam around that lightning that we just saw. And you can see kind of the sheets of rain and hail. Right here in our traffic cam is in the Jacksville area. It's raining, but not as hard as it is just to the south. So we should be seeing that storm kind of crossing. And cars are putting on, rightly so, their flashers. They're getting into some really heavy rain and possibly some large hail potential. That middle rain shaft that's dark there towards the highway is probably the hail core that we're seeing live on camera affecting this area here around Sherwood Park. So you can see that just straight down the highway there. That's, I think, your large hail core, as the camera's right here in this Jacksville area looking south. So you can really see that hail core as it's sweeping across the highway right now. Again, sorry I'm not looking at you guys. I'm kind of focused on this camera right now too. The camera's on my side screen, and yeah, you can see the thick hail core just sweeping across the highway there. That is a fascinating shot. So beyond hail, it looks like there's a lot of lightning, strong gusty winds. You can see how the hail core is kind of bowing a little bit on the one side. But yeah, that's our camera right there. That we've caught several interesting hail elements out of. But looking south towards the Shawwood Park area, and that storm is headed generally down 422 towards Prospect and Butler. Fascinating look at the hail core. And then gusty winds. You can see lots of lightning. So if you don't have to be out and about, it seems like the traffic is picked up on this traffic camera, unfortunately. And if you know anyone that's like headed south along I-79 from the Slippery Rock area, it'd be not a great drive. Especially south of I-80 right now, between I-80 and Zelienople and Cranberry Township. Those areas are just rough. If you can, just let these storms pass a little bit. Yeah, you can see the hail core now on the camera and here has moved off. So again, our camera's like in Jacksville area looking south. So now our hail core has moved off of the highway, but now sliding down east and south along 422. Behind that hail core, there's still a ton of heavy rain in here along the highway. So that's what we're seeing now. That dark area there is where the lightning is all this heavy rain, maybe some small hail in here. But that is a fascinating look as we saw the hail core across the highway. So here comes, let's review it again here a little bit. Unfortunately, I can't wipe back the camera, but you can see the larger hail core in the blues and pinks and purples around Gibsondale, Kennedy Mill, and then putting it into motion again around Kennedy Mill and Rose Point. And then we can really pick it up on the camera when it's coming across Sherwood Park and across the highway here. We can see the hail core as our camera is up right here in this Jacksville area. And then now we can see the hail core is pushed east, and that's the dark side of the storm here that we're seeing on the backside. And we'll see here in a few minutes if we can get out into the sunshine again. But that lightning area that we just saw, that is our camera looking at the backside of this storm. That's a dangerous, severe thunderstorm warned storm here between Shawwood Park, and Muddy Creek, headed down towards Portersville and Prospect, and then eventually headed into the Butler area. Have another storm that has hail potential here coming into Worthington and Katanning. Those two towns have gotten missed by several larger storms. This one may slide just to your north as well. I think Worthington might miss some of the largest hail out of this one. But this one does seem to be sinking a little further south towards the Katanning area. So if you're in Katanning, Furnace Run, McNeese, West Valley, you're going to get into some heavy rain, lightning, strong winds, and potential for larger hail. Being warned for 1.5 inch diameter hail. Trying to see if we have any updated reports. A lot of these are from the first round of storms that came through. The biggest have been in that 1.75 inch range in the Slippery Rock area, and then also in the Warren, Ohio area. It was the same storm that we tracked. Otherwise, a lot of the storm reports are in the inch range, 1.2, that kind of range there. Still can do some damage, especially to crops and plants. I know a lot of people have been gardening with the warmer weather coming along. If you have some sensitive vegetation, that can also cause some problems. So some larger hail all up in these storms. A little bit of a decrease in the hail cores overall, at least the number of them. But still some severe thunderstorms. One coming towards the Katanning area may slide down towards Indiana. One now east of I-79 for the most part, in the Slippery Rock, Shawwood Park area, coming down towards Butler. Another one here sliding south of Clarion. And then other storms that are severe and sub-severe headed towards Clearfield in the Sandy area. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some hail and gusty winds there. And then maybe one more round of storms back just north of Newcastle with some small hail. You can really start to see the hail cores. We're getting a picture of it from the back side there. You can see the white. That's heavy rain and hail on the side. There's even a bit of an edge above that tree and above the exit on the left side of the camera there. You can really see the hail core popping out. And again, we're watching that as it's now over here near Lake Arthur right now. So a fascinating camera that we've gotten to see in this view right here. So we're seeing that hail core and heaviest rain now pushing off to the south and east of Shawwood Park. Still heavy rain though, and lightning back into that area along 422 and 79. And then we might get to see another hail core as there's another strong storm here near Kennedy Mill and Rose Point. That's basically sliding in the same direction, so it's headed back along 422 towards Shawwood Park again. Finally, though, storms clearing out in the Slippery Rock area. I maybe have one more round here by Newcastle and New Wilmington, Sunset Valley and Mayville. Some small hail likely in there. And then in the Katanning area, still have that hailstorm now through French's Corner, approaching Baum Station, West Valley, and the Katanning area immediately. Especially north side of downtown is where your biggest threat for the larger hail is going to be. In this area here between West Valley and French's Corner, headed generally towards West Valley. That's probably going to affect areas like Blanco, Rural Valley, McNeese, Echo, and Baum Station, as well as maybe Snyderville and Goheenville. So you can really see those thunderstorm cores. Now I think we're catching the other one crossing the highway. Here as this one comes towards the highway here near Rose Point and Kennedy Mill. We'll see if we get an update on the radar should update here in just a minute or two, and then we can see where it is located near the highway. I think it's going to be in the next view, probably closer to over the highway. Another new severe thunderstorm warning for 1-inch hail. This includes Youngstown, Boardman, New Middletown, and Struthers in Ohio. This is right along the Ohio and Pennsylvania state line here. Just outside of the warning would be Bessemer. However, Bessemer is pretty close to where this stronger storm is, along 224, and then also there's another stronger part here near the Boardman area. I can see what they're warning this for. 1-inch hail, it looks like, is where they're warning it for. And yeah, this is the cell located over Boardman, moving east at 50. So yeah, you can see the purple there, right along 680. This is going to be sliding generally south and east towards Bessemer, towards New Middletown, and right now affecting Boardman and Struthers. So another strong thunderstorm right there in eastern Ohio. The Pennsylvania-Ohio state line has been the dividing line between the severe weather for a lot of the evening here. But finally we get a severe warning back into the Youngstown area. Yeah, I think we're seeing again right here in Jacksville. We're seeing our camera again catch another strong thunderstorm and hail core near Shawwood Park, as our camera's like right up in this area here, looking south, southeast. So you can see here these cars are really going into it. I'm surprised there's still so many people out and about right now with all these severe storms around. And beyond the severe storms, there's definitely a flood threat in this area. We have a flash flood warning for the areas around Grove City. So please take any flash flood warnings with seriousness, especially if you live in a low-lying area. Areas around Butler are starting to get into some thunderstorms that they haven't yet much this evening. Now storms pushing along 422. The stronger parts of those storms seem to be a little bit further north right now. In these areas up here towards Muddy Creek and Boydstown, probably some small hail in there. Up towards Hickory Corner. Those may stay north of the city of Butler, right in this area here, but I wouldn't be surprised if you get some small hail up along Route 8 here north of Butler, especially along and north of 422 for that storm. You can see how electrified these storms are. There's a lot of lightning showing. So yeah, we're watching now this cell here push through our camera position once again with another heavy thunderstorm and hail potential between Kennedy Mill and Shawwood Park. Probably another round back here toward Mayville. Maybe some small hail in here. And then they've now re-added a warning for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. These are going to cover the new storms that are over the Newcastle area. And then the ones also pushing now east of Boardman on 224. They're also headed towards the Bessemer and Newcastle area. Maybe down to the New Beaver, Elwood City, Newcastle. Some more strong storms headed towards Plain Grove. It's not a super defined, QLCS. Here's a wind report. Let's see what this says. So we have wind report from Mifflintown of multiple signs blown down across the roadway, impacting traffic and the high winds. So some high winds here in the Mifflintown area. Those were the storms that were stronger up there. I definitely would. They've now weakened beyond the below severe limits, and now just general showers and thunderstorms, probably with some gusty winds coming in towards the Harrisburg area. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more wind reports out of this area from Mifflintown up through Menno, up towards the Tyrone area, and even maybe back towards Punxsutawney. We had a couple rounds of some clusters of storms that had somewhat more bow features than the ones back in western Pennsylvania at the moment. I don't see any other wind reports right now, but so that's a good thing. But once again, our biggest storms are still in the same area with some strong hail cores. Overlapping severe thunderstorm warnings too with all these storms. But a pretty good hail core near Katanning, moving towards Rural Valley and Dayton in Ohio, or in Pennsylvania. If that holds together, that's going to head towards rain. Another sizable hail core just south of Limestone. That's drifting south and east towards Punxsutawney. So Punxsutawney may get another round of severe weather. Wow, look at the cam now. Whew. Another strong cell with some embedded hail in here towards Toby. That'll be sinking south and east. And then good news is we're not seeing as much in the hail core on the north side of Butler. Still maybe some small hail on the north side of Butler, but it doesn't look as punchy as it did a few minutes ago. We do have some hail reports. These are from the earlier hail reports. West Sunbury got hit with about 1.25 inches hail. Still probably some small hail between Muddy Creek and Chicora north of 422. But the bigger hail core right now seems to be the one here near Prospect, headed south and east along 422. If that holds together, that may come into the Butler area more immediately. But we'll see if that area stays or if it's on a downtrend as well. Back towards our cam. Whew, look how dark that is. It's also getting dark too, but we're seeing now the backside of this storm from West Liberty down towards Prospect and Portersville. So once again, our camera is like right in here. So we're looking south and seeing the back edge of that storm and all the lightning that's up in it. That hail core is that one I was just talking about near Prospect, headed along 422. Still a lot of, I know this is an interstate, but still a lot of cars out tonight. If you don't have to go out tonight, especially in this area, it's a good night just to hunker down. It's a Sunday night. Just hunker down and let some of these storms die out later this evening. You can kind of see how much overlapping severe thunderstorm warnings there are. This area up towards Limestone has a pretty strong cell I mentioned earlier, especially the areas from Shannondale over towards Frogtown. That's going to be coming towards New Freedom, Worthville, Conifer, Ramseytown, Content. Not seeing much in between there, so that's a good sign. Zooming in a little bit more, there's an area called Langville, Pansy, and Cool Spring. That area along Route 36, Pennsylvania 36, is in line for some hail. Maybe eventually down towards the Oliveburg, Ringgold, and Big Run areas. And we'll have to see if that does slide further south. It could be into the Punxsutawney area. A lot of lightning on that traffic cam. Alright, so now Rural Valley still has hail potential. That hail core is dropping off a little bit, so that's good to see. Still, that hail core along 422 is holding together pretty good. Right now, areas along 422 near Prospect, that'll be coming into the Butler area in a matter of minutes. So hopefully you guys have had severe thunderstorm watch for a few hours now and have had storms go north of the city of Butler. Hopefully anyone has taken time to put their car in a garage or a safe space, because now you're having the next hail core come towards you guys. Otherwise, probably some small hail gusty winds. Chicora over to Muddy Creek. That area seems to be on a downtrend a little bit, so that's good. And then another storm with some decent sized hail core coming in towards the Toby area. And we've talked about some of these towns a couple times now. Towards Rimmersburg, Toby, Kissinger Mill, Diamond. Those are areas that can be affected by this storm. Finally, I-80 west of Clarion is no longer under severe thunderstorm warning. Clarion's right here, and you can see I-80 towards Youngstown finally clearing out. But east of Clarion on I-80, they're still scattered strong and severe thunderstorms between Clearfield, Du Bois, towards Warsaw and Corsica, with the strongest storm being near Du Bois and Penfield, with maybe some small hail. Good news is I do see there's been a bit of a downtrend on these hail cores. Even just a few scans back, you can see some of the larger hail cores in there. There's still a few that have some strong hail cores, but not as bad as they were earlier. That area south and east of Limestone, the areas around Toby, Slippery Rock again looks like it has a larger hail core. And then now those storms that have slid from the Boardman area in Ohio now into the Newcastle area have strong hail. And then also still a little strong hail core showing up between Prospect and Butler. Good news is for those populated areas is that seems to be on the downtrend a little bit. Maybe some small hail up north of Butler on Route 8 as well. And still some small hail likely in the rural valley area. That storm has also been on a downtrend, so that's been good to see. And yeah, now you can see our traffic cam again in the rain and storms. I can see rain actually coming down on the camera. Let's check in on where it is. Okay, so yeah, it is in the rain. That's for sure. Let's see the storm motion for this storm, because it may be getting in. This storm is moving more east here towards storm here in Slippery Rock is definitely moving more east than south. So there's probably if there's hail cores, they're going to be behind our camera on this storm. Our camera's again kind of down in this Jacksville area. Plain Grove up towards Slippery Rock may have some more hail. Maybe getting into the Jacksville area. I do see cars with their flashers on, so that's good. Even if you're not in the hail core, there's still a ton of heavy rain in these storms as they shift. Is this a newer report? No, this is an old one too. There's going to be overlapping reports of hail. And unfortunately, I don't think I can filter it by time. I might be able to. I'm not going to worry about that right now, though. I might be able to filter it by like the last hour versus the last couple hours. Still hail coming into the Newcastle area with this severe storm right on the Ohio state line. I would say that the part of the warning that's in Ohio is probably going to be dropped here momentarily. Ohio is pretty much out of this severe thunderstorm warning. That strong cell is coming into Newcastle right now. And then here's what I was expecting for quite a while is they've now issued a flash flood warning for this whole area, basically from the east side of Youngstown all the way along 422 towards North Cambria, up towards Sandy, and then up towards just south of Clarion over to Grove City. That area has a new flash flood warning for just the rounds of heavy rain, severe thunderstorms that this area has had. This area has taken a beating. It's a fairly small area. Um, Even last night and this morning, it looked like the models tended to have these cells move a little more. They just haven't been. They have in other parts of the state, but they've been a lot less severe in other parts of the state. Um, and like I thought earlier in the day, there's really been no severe warnings east of the Scranton area. It's just been too cool. You may get some general thunderstorms if you're in eastern New York, near Binghamton, Albany, just some general showers and storms. But I think your severe weather chances are on the downtrend, as well as areas like along New York City and Long Island. Some general thunderstorms coming in. Some stronger storms, a bit stronger here near Allentown. That's generally moving towards the Trenton area. That'll be coming through Raritan, Buckingham, Somerville, Hillsborough, Bedminster, Hilltown, and then down towards Horsham and skirting into the Philadelphia suburbs eventually. That's a stronger line of storms, maybe some small hail, but mostly gusty winds in there. Generally headed towards Trenton. But that's about it for this area. I don't see some of the larger hail or gusty winds, and definitely no tornado potential out this far. There has been some wind reports near Lewiston. Some trees down, some highway signs blown down along the highway. That was earlier, and those storms have significantly weakened as they're now pushing through the Harrisburg area. So really all of our action right now is on the west side of the state, as it's kind of continued to be. So some hail cores up in here near Sandy are ones to watch. Especially this one here toward Penfield and Anderson Creek with some larger hail. One in here towards Ramseytown. Back into the Limestone area near Sligo and Curlsville. And then pushing south towards Rural Valley and Plumville. Maybe some small hail in these storms, gusty winds for sure. And then back into the Butler area. Get a better look at this storm on the Pittsburgh radar. So now we do have some hail core coming into Butler right now, but not as severe as it was earlier. The hail core definitely trended down, so that's a good sign. North Oakland, St. Joe, strong storms coming your way. And then the stronger storms still right now are up in the Slippery Rock area, with another pretty strong cell there now sliding east of downtown. And then a pretty good cell here on the Newcastle area, right near 376 and 224. Downtown Newcastle is really under it now. And we're seeing the look here of these storms now coming across our camera again. So again, our camera's like right in here. So we're looking at storms off to the south and east, and then storms now moving across the highway here just in front of our camera again. The storm near Kennedy's Mill and Harlansburg and Rose Point and Shawwood Park doesn't look quite as strong as some of the others, but maybe a little bit of hail and gusty winds in there. Still picking up some larger hail returns here in this Newcastle area, especially out 551 towards Edinburgh. This is a pretty sizable hail core. Towards Joyce, Newcastle, South Newcastle, the areas around 376 and 422, Lawrence Junction, up towards Edinburgh and Peanut. This area is really getting it right now. Areas around Butler, and then up east now of Slippery Rock have some pretty heavy hail. Still some larger hail here towards Kerrsville, now east of Toby. and south of Limestone. Again, at least these storms are kind of starting to sink south of I-80. And then some larger hail up here, I think, towards Penfield and Anderson Creek right now. This traffic cam has been interesting to watch. That's one thing. Storms are looking a little less vigorous down here now, finally, towards Rural Valley and then towards Rain. Those storms are definitely less reflective than they were earlier. I can go back and we can see what those look like. Even just a few scans ago, they had some brighter purples in there. They've been on the downtrend overall in that area. That's seen some rounds of rain up in this area here between Altoona and Punxsutawney. Has gotten hit with several rounds of storms. I think right now our biggest storm, just checking the whole line a little bit, the biggest storm still here is this one around Newcastle. And it's the one we may be able to, if the storm that's over our traffic cam now can clear out a little bit, we may be able to get a good look at this storm as it passes south. Generally in the Newcastle area, this is headed south and east, again towards Portersville, Prospect, Elwood City, New Beaver, and points south, possibly towards Zelienople. Let's see what they're warning this one for. It's being warned for 1-inch hail. I think most of these are being warned for 1-inch hail. There's still a 1 1/4 inch hail for this area here, but that may be an old. And some of these cells up here are being also warned for 1 1/4 inch. These cells here, now south of Reynoldsville, and the ones that are north and northwest of New Bethlehem, those ones have some higher end hail potential. Lots of lightning in this whole area. And again, even beyond the severe thunderstorm threat is the flood threat, and that is a larger flash flood warning from Sandy over towards New Cambria, north of Indiana, and along 422 towards the areas just east of Youngstown, up towards Grove City. This whole area has flash flood threat, so please turn around and don't drown. Especially now that it's getting dark, it's harder to see how deep the water is, how fast the water is going. So if you arrive on a water-covered roadway, just turn around and take the long way home. It's better to get home a few minutes late than not at all. So definitely turn around, don't drown. If you live in an area that is prone to flooding, and it hasn't yet, now would be a good time to have your flood precautions and plans ready to go, and then definitely, be ready to act on those as the night continues, because this does seem to be continuing to train thunderstorms over the same areas. So still some big hail cores in here. Maybe one more in here, and one near Clearfield, but non-severe warned. So the biggest one is this one that I'm going to concentrate on for the next few minutes, and then we'll take a kind of a rain check here and see if what the trend lines are. Okay, we can really start to see the hail core come across this camera again. So that's looking right here. Another big thunderstorm and hail core. We're right here in the Jacksville area looking off at that. You can see the hail core and rain shaft illuminated with the lightning there. Kind of right over the highway if you're looking at the camera. Still a lot of cars going into it pretty fast. I see that some cars put on their flashers as they get further down the highway because they're really running into a wall of water. If you look here in the Jacksville area north towards Plain Grove and Slippery Rock. That area is finally starting to clear out from the weather. But very quickly here, right at our traffic cam, is where you get into this heavy rain, wind, and some small hail up in here. And then further down the highway is what I'm getting a little more concerned about, is this hail core in the Newcastle area. As it slides south and east, it's going to be affecting areas along 79, especially along 422 and 79. These are one of the bigger hail returns I think we've seen in a few minutes. Maybe since the last hour or so. Just checking, I'm not seeing much in rotation in these storms, so rotation wise they've really behaved themselves. Haven't had really much of a tornado threat. A little bit of rotation up in the cell here. If it has a big hail core, it likely has an updraft. So most of the concern would be the hail core that's up in the Newcastle area, but then rotation, if it pops up, would be on that southern flank of it. Still not seeing much, so that's good. Maybe some gusty winds though you can start to pick up in there, headed towards the New Beaver area, Elwood City, down towards Portersville. Again, the more concerning part, because you can handle most places should be able to handle some 60-mile-an-hour winds, 50-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be the larger hail, and that's starting to pick up in this reflectivity here, right in the Newcastle area. Still watching this traffic cam. It's very interesting. So the storm that we've been watching lately here on the traffic cam is now sliding off to the east of the highway, but further south along 422 here in the Portersville area is where we're going to find this larger hail core. And you can kind of see the overall shape of this storm. You can kind of see it in the lightning when it flashed right. So we're really watching, we're getting with the camera some ground truth to what we're seeing on the radar here. We're seeing this edge of water here south of our camera location push off across the highway, across the areas around Portersville, with the hail back in here towards Newcastle, right along and south of 422. So very interesting to watch those. More severe storms up towards Punxsutawney now, with hail between Punxsutawney and Sandy likely, and then a bunch of storms with some smaller hail between Limestone and Punxsutawney. Also probably some gusty winds up in there. That storm that moved through Rural Valley is now headed towards Rain along 119 north of Indiana. And then the storms that move through Butler are now near Saxonburg, Herman, and coming into the Worthington area. They're definitely on the downtrend. So that's nice to see. Still some gusty winds. Still some possible larger hail cores near Muddy Creek, north of Chicora, up towards North Washington. That area has some larger hail. And then the biggest one right now is this area here now sliding south and east of Newcastle, along 422 headed towards Portersville is where our largest hail core of the moment is located. So this is coming into Energy. I think Energy had a storm with some larger hail earlier, but this one is probably a bigger return than it was the last time we talked about your town. So this is right now affecting Castlewood, Energy, areas along 65 and 388. That's Pennsylvania 65 and 388 south and east of Newcastle now. If you're in the areas of Duck Run, Princeton, Ross Point, Castlewood, Energy, this is all a pretty sizable hail core. headed towards the areas around Piles Mill, Pleasant Hill, Portersville. Um, Probably going to go south of Shawwood Park and Rose Point, but still we got to keep our eye on it. And then further down south and east, watching areas around Elport, Middle Lancaster, Prospect, Whitestown, Wallville, Renfrew, and if it holds together, then the Route 8 corridor around Butler and Point South. That area does have a severe thunderstorm warning for 1.75-inch hail. So that is golf ball size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. That's the severe storm near Newcastle. I think that's a newer warning that a warning that they've upgraded. So I think we've gotten most of the places that are in that warning. Finally, areas around Slippery Rock are clearing out a little bit, and also areas around our traffic cam. But we can use this cam to see the storm as it passes our camera. So again, the big hail right now around Energy, headed towards Portersville, and then eventually towards Prospect and Butler. Areas around Muddy Creek along Route 8 have some larger hail in here, and then likely some larger hail up by Brady's Bend Township along 268 here, south of Parker. That's another one to watch for larger hail. And then the areas north of New Bethlehem and Leatherwood. This area here has a pretty decent hail core. And then some other storms near Punxsutawney with hail and high winds. So yeah, just kind of generally checking again the area. And this is the hail core to watch right now. Right over Energy, headed towards Pleasant Hill, Portersville, Piles Mills, with some really good returns in there. Not good if you like the hail, or if you don't want the hail, but good if you do. And I don't think anyone does. Those blues indicate some sizable hail. Right over the areas around Energy. Still just a little broad weekly rotation on the southern end of that storm, but not seeing anything there that's worth noting. We can go back to our CC and kind of confirm this area here. You can see the hail core on the CC as well as the reflectivity. So that's not good for the large hail that headed towards Pleasant Hill, Portersville, Piles Mills, and Middle Lancaster down here in the bottom part of your screen. Oh, that's off. I'm blocking the screen. Just realized my head is blocking the screen. Middle Lancaster, Piles Mills, Pleasant Hill are all in line for this hail core that's over Energy right now, and still holding together pretty strong here as it's coming into the Pleasant Hill, Portersville area right now. Piles Mill, Middle Lancaster is going to be next, up towards Porterville. And it looks like this is going to slide just south of Shawwood Park. So areas in particular along and south of 422 are going to be the ones that are most impacted by this larger hail core here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see these reports coming out of Newcastle soon. But Prospect towards Butler, Elport, and Portersville are really under the gun here. In its current path, it should slide north of Zelienople, but Zelienople, you are in the severe thunderstorm warning, so please take it seriously, especially if it heads a little further south. Areas on the north side of Zelienople could be impacted by this hail core. We can go back and we can see it stayed pretty consistent on a south-southeast path. So I think Zelienople is probably further south to really get in on the biggest hail, but certainly north of Zelienople on 79 towards Portersville, that's going to be an area that's impacted pretty good. So if you know anyone that's going along and planning on traveling 79, good to give them a call and tell them to hold up around Cranberry Township, Zelienople. This does seem to be like the current back edge of this storm complex. There are a few more storms out here, but none that are severe. So let this hail core pass and clear the highway if you're planning on traveling 79 for a little bit. Otherwise, some larger hail cores here around the New Bethlehem area, particularly along 66, Pennsylvania 66, north of New Bethlehem, has a larger hail core potential there. And then near Brady's Bend Township, some small hail in here by Chicora over through Muddy Creek, north of 422 in Butler, seeing a pretty hefty storm. And then still picking up large hail in this area from Portersville down to Pleasant Hill, now east of Energy. And you can see it in the CC too. So that's kind of cross-checking our reflectivity, and we're seeing the larger hail targets in the CC with those yellows and oranges and greens, and that corresponds to the pinks, purples, and blues here in the reflectivity. You can also get a different look at it with the VIL, vertically integrated liquid, and we can see a pretty high VIL here, and that is the one that's standing out the most in that radar data. That one north of New Bethlehem would be the secondary one that in the VIL stands out, but then some smaller hail north of Butler. It's this one here that right now is the largest hail storm of the moment. And putting that into motion, you can see how it grows over the Newcastle area, coming out of the Boardman area where it developed, and then now south here between Newcastle and Elwood City. And then you can also see with the radar in motion how there's been rounds of heavy thunderstorms with embedded hail cores, and we've watched that not just on radar but on the traffic cam here, which is finally clearing out a little bit. Our traffic cam is going to be on the north side of this storm. Still may get into some rain near Kennedy Mill, but we're really watching the lightning flash. We should be able to see this wall of water and hail looking south here. So a little drier where our traffic cam is, but yeah, if you watch the lightning, you can see the wall of water that's sliding past the highway here now. So now that's going to be affecting 79 near Pleasant Hill, just south of Portersville. Zooming in, I don't see any specific town names, but this is along the highway basically between Prospect and Pleasant Hill. This is a sizable hail core. Also Piles Mill, Whitestown, and Prospect, and maybe as far south as Middle Lancaster or up next. Checking out this cam again. Fascinating angle we have had for the storms. If this holds together, it's going to be headed towards Meridian, Home Anchor, Greenwood Village, Mount Chestnut Springs. Mentioned Whitestown earlier. Maybe as far down towards the Petersville, Oak Hills, Meadowood, and Butler areas. Still large hail, speaking of Butler. North of Butler, there's some areas of hail, and Brady's Bend Township area up towards Rimmersburg. That area has some embedded hail cores. Generally on the downtrend. This area down here near Ford City, maybe some gusty winds, small hail, as well as areas around Rural Valley still or again. And then areas north and in the Punxsutawney area are under severe thunderstorm warning for some small hail as well as gusty winds. Still not seeing anything in particular out east as far as warnings. Storms continue to weaken as they come towards the Trenton area. Still some gusty winds, especially on the leading edge of what's left of those storms. And then after that, it's just going to be rain, wind, some embedded thunder and lightning for areas around Easton, Allentown, East Stroudsburg, Bridgewater Township, over towards the New York City metro. Checking on, I don't see much in the way of new hail reports. I'm sure we're going to get some behind this storm, though, from the Boardman area over towards Newcastle. And I can check and see. Let's check and see if we've had any. Checking one of my other products here and seeing if we have any hail reports. The hail that's come across the Newcastle area has probably been their 5th or 6th severe thunderstorm with large hail potential. It'll be interesting to see what the National Weather Service, they're really going to have to pay attention and time these reports and then correlate them back to the radar, because there's just going to be a scattering of hail reports, especially in this area here in western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio, that just overlaps each other with all of these rounds of did see on social media someone reported half-inch hail in the Newcastle area, northwest of Newcastle. And that's probably not the largest hail we're going to see out of this storm and behind it. It's really crossing the highway now south of Portersville, between Portersville and Middle Lancaster right now. This is a hail core that's stuck together for a while now. And I can see. So this storm developed basically in the Newcastle or in the Boardman area. So this hail core has stayed pretty consistent for about 28 to 30 miles, I would say. It's come down a little bit. We don't see as many of the bright blues. But still, there's a scattering of blues in there with the high purple and pink returns. So that should be just straight away from our traffic cam, looking right into the hail core. So if you know people along 79, just tell them to hold up a little bit and give this storm time to pass here. Just it's moving at 45 or 50 miles an hour, so it's not going to take a ton of time to pass the highway location. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's see. Just double checking. Just kind of a broader view of things. Here's a wind report out of the Williamsport area earlier for 3-inch tree limbs broken and power poles broken. That was with those severe thunderstorms earlier that came through the Wilkes-Barre, Williamsport area. Significantly decreased in their severe threat. So they're going to warn this storm in particular for 1.75 inch hail, golf ball size hail, moving east at 45 or 9 miles west of Butler. So this is coming towards the Butler area now. This is going to be the strongest storm to affect Butler for the evening. You've had already some rain, wind, and hail, but this one is going to be a bigger impact. I'm going to see if we have any other traffic cams that might be in the Butler area. And unfortunately, I don't. Yeah, I don't have any really good. So we'll keep watching this one. This is just north of this storm now. Now starting to clear out here. It's this area around Jacksville on the radar that our camera is located. So now that it is clearing, we should be able to see the back edge of this storm, and you can see more of that straight ahead with the lightning, but it's gotten missed a couple times with some larger hail. Alright, focusing in on this storm. This is now riding south and along and south of 422. So if you live along 422, this is a pretty significant hail core that's headed basically right now along 79 between Zelienople and Prospect and Portersville along 79 here. This is moving south and east towards the Butler area, as far south as Evans City is in this watch or warning. And that also stretches out to include areas by Herman, Saxonburg, Clinton, Harrison Township, Leechburg, Vandergrift, and Ford City. Areas south of Katanning, and basically along and south of 422. It's a pretty well-traveled highway in this part of the country. It's a controlled access highway for parts of it, and then it's a 4-lane major road for other parts. So it's a pretty significant highway, as well as areas like 28, which is another highway that goes from the Katanning area down into Pittsburgh, and also Route 8 in Butler area also is a major thoroughfare down into the Pittsburgh metro. So this storm is going to be affecting a bit more populated area than some of the storms have earlier in the evening. This is in general coming towards Whitestown, towards Butler, towards Wallville, Renfrew, Nixon, Rockdale, Saxonburg, Cabot, Great Belt, and Herman, as well as Evans City, McFan, Strable's Corner, and points in between. Still holding together a large hail core here. And you can see the back edge of the storm and the rain shadow that's casting here as we look south on our traffic cam here along 79. Still a lot of lightning in this storm as well. And finally that area now in our traffic cam around Slippery Rock is finally clearing out. More storms though are building back in Ohio towards Columbiana, towards Hanoverton, and East Rochester. We'll have to see how those develop as they move towards the Pittsburgh area. You can see a few scans ago, those weren't much. But now there's some lightning showing and some brighter returns. Now there's kind of two storms that are showing the largest hail core. The one between Zelienople and Butler, and then also these ones here, a couple in a cluster south of Toby and generally west of Punxsutawney. Those would be the two that are the most particularly interesting at the moment. That one's being warned for 1.25-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. This one has less of a wind threat at the moment, but the larger hail threat. And this is moving pretty much towards the area's south side of Butler, from the areas just north of Zelienople, between Zelienople, Prospect, and Butler, down to Evans City, Saxonburg, Herman, and Clinton. You're going to have a pretty rough thunderstorm coming your way. Not seeing as much out of the traffic cam, so we'll close that for a little bit and just kind of focus in here. So I can see there is a sizable hail core still on this. It's trended down a little bit, as it had some of its brightest returns up in the Newcastle area. But for the most part, it stayed pretty solid. It does appear to be shrinking the hail core a little bit. But still, it is a pretty dangerous storm. Also, some gusty winds in here. Just checking for any rotation, but I'm not seeing a ton that's concerning at the moment. So that's good news on that side of things. But areas along 68, Route 68, that's PA 68 towards Wallville and Renfrew and Whitestown. That area is your biggest hail core right in there. It may skirt on the south side of Butler, but that would affect areas like Meridian in a matter of like a couple minutes or less. McCalmont, Renfrew, Oak Hills, Meadowood, Home Acres, down towards McBride on Route 8. Adjusting the title for a minute just to depict the large hail threat that we're tracking. The other storm that has that larger hail core is in the area around New Bethlehem, headed towards Ringgold. This one, if it holds together, will be in the Punxsutawney area. So a bigger town / small city that could be under more of a hail threat here in a few minutes. Also includes that area around Punxsutawney. Maybe still some small hail south of Rural Valley towards Elderton on 422. But this is our big storm here that we're watching. And with the hail core on the south side of Butler in the areas around Renfrew, along Route 8 towards Nixon, Rockdale, Great Belt, Saxonburg, Cabot, and Strables Corners are next in line for this storm. As well as some hail possible down in this area by Wallville. But really kind of focusing in on the large hail core in the middle of the storm here. Right now near McCalmont and coming into the Oak Hills area on the south side of Butler, Pennsylvania. Meadowood, Meridian, Petersville, McCalmont, Renfrew, and Oak Hills along Route 8, south side of Butler. That is going to be a sizable hail core. I'm just checking back to see if we have any new hail reports. I don't see any. Still not seeing much in the way of rotation. Maybe some higher level rotation over here towards Balsano, but nothing notable here at the moment. That may have some gusty winds coming in towards the Ebensburg area. Also along 422. And then still have our biggest storm here at the moment, with the hail coming into the area's south side of Butler. Yeah, you can see the hail still showing up on the CC here as well, in that area right there, and that corresponds to the larger hail right up in here. So we're seeing it on multiple data views for the radar site. That helps to confirm that we are indeed seeing a large severe hail threat track across the areas near Butler towards Saxonburg. And then this is eventually coming down towards Clinton. Next in line, Harrison Township, Leechburg, Ford City, and areas just to the south of Katanning are under the gun for that large hail threat. As that hail core does seem to be holding together. It's come down in reflectivity a little bit from a few scans ago. You can see even more blues back in here. But it's still holding together pretty good. This is coming across the McCalmont area right now, coming in towards Oak Hills and McBride along Route 8 here. So you can really see that zoomed in close. If you live along Vogel Road near Route 8 in the Oak Hills, Pennsylvania area, and down towards the McBride, this area of large hail is coming towards you, as well as areas out towards Meharg, Rockdale, and areas along 356 towards Jefferson Center into the Saxonburg area. This hail core is headed that direction. I just want to check and see if there's any update on have not seen any new updates other than it will contain golf ball size hail. Seeing if we have any confirmed hail reports. It's a pretty big storm for this part of the country with larger hail. The good news is the latest returns aren't as reflective, but it's still seeing that CC drop indicating there's some larger hail in here. And that's the area around Oak Hills down to McBride, somewhat like this. Still affecting areas here south side of Butler, Pennsylvania. Watching that come towards Rockdale, Jefferson Center, and then into the Saxonburg area. It does seem to be finally a little bit on a downtrend as far as its reflectivity and in the CC. Still some larger hail reflective, and maybe even one coming into Butler with some small hail now. So that'll be interesting. As it looked like downtown got missed by the largest part of this storm, but potentially a strong signature here for hail coming into the Greenwood Village area, and then that would continue into Butler if there's any hail in that cell. Things finally starting to clear down. I think we have only one now. They just dropped the other severe thunderstorm warning. So I think what we're going to do is we'll track this storm a little further, since it does have a large hail potential and it's in a pretty populated area for the moment. And once the downtrend continues in this storm, we'll end the stream this evening because it's going to be a busy week for severe weather. If you haven't, take a look at the channel and also on Twitter. This earlier today we posted it. We have a quick 2.5 minute kind of quick cast of the severe weather potential for this week. It's a multi-day severe weather threat that started yesterday with some severe weather yesterday in the Pacific Northwest, continued today with the severe weather threat focused in western Pennsylvania, and then tomorrow we head back with a severe threat for the plains, particularly Oklahoma, West Texas Panhandle, up through Kansas and Nebraska, and then that's going to continue all the way through the week with possible severe weather Tuesday from Iowa down through the Mississippi Valley, likely on Wednesday, getting into the Ohio Valley, and then possibly even more severe weather Thursday, longer term out. So there is potential for severe weather really all week, and we'll be here tracking it, especially on the bigger enhanced risk days. Have some live streams for you. So nothing to be scared of. It's just important to be weather aware, and if we can help track some storms out and prevent some people from running into some bad weather, that's a good idea. So they've dropped severe thunderstorm warnings for these northern cells. There still may be some small hail in here towards Punxsutawney and then northwest of Katanning. So watch that as this area has downtrended. That's been a good sign, but there still may be some severe thunderstorm warnings that pop up. And I can see what the SPC, if there's any new guidance for later into the day. So still a slight risk of severe weather, basically for this area here in western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. Getting down into the Pittsburgh area, there still is a slight risk of severe weather, and actually a little further south down into the Morgantown, Cumberland area. So extreme western Maryland, northern West Virginia, eastern Ohio, and western Pennsylvania still could be impacted in the next few hours into the evening and night for severe weather. Haven't seen any impacts yet down towards Wheeling, Pittsburgh, Morgantown, Cumberland. Any of those areas are still unaffected by this. So as the showers and storms sink to the south, southeast, those areas still could be impacted. But the highest peak of today's severe weather was earlier in the evening, and it does seem to be on a downtrend, which is a good sign. Still have 1 3/4 inch hail, golf ball size hail possible, coming into the areas south of Butler near Rockdale and Saxonburg. This is headed south southeast towards Clinton, and also a decent size hail core coming towards Herman and Great Belt. That's over downtown Butler right now. So areas around East Butler, Herman, Great Belt, down towards Cabot, Denny's Mills, and West Winfield could be in line for that one. Yeah, a couple still pretty significant looking hail cores here in Butler County, Pennsylvania. Those are going to continue to shift south and east towards Saxonburg, Clinton, Ford City, Leechburg, Vandergrift, Harrison Township. They've now reissued a new warning for 1 inch hail out of this storm. This is a storm near Brady's Bend Township, headed generally towards Mahoning, Snyderville, Dayton, Rural Valley, Rain, Glen Campbell, Cherry Tree, Dixonville are all in this warning. So please take these warnings seriously, because there are gusty winds, large hail in these. Still some strong cells back towards Zelienople with some heavy rain, high winds, and lightning. Maybe some small hail in those two. But the main two cells here at the moment seem to be this cell here near Brady's Bend Township, and then the cluster here just south of Butler and in Butler along Route 8 as they head south and southeast. So those two cells should miss the immediate Pittsburgh metro area. If we have any viewers from Pittsburgh, the immediate metro area, the two strongest cells are already north and east, so they should continue to slide south and east, generally like that direction. Pittsburgh will have to watch the new development that's back towards the Ohio and Pennsylvania state line. There's been some cells that have been uptrending in that area west of Beaver Falls that are worth watching. Those would be ones that would slide south and east into the immediate Pittsburgh area, and potentially those could grow to have large hail as well. Otherwise, there's some storms all the way back towards the Akron area. Just some showers and storms mostly in that area. But the hail core has come down quite a bit, still affecting Saxonburg and possibly areas between Butler and Herman with some small hail, really along Route 8 and south of Butler. Those are generally coming towards the Ford City area. I think we'll go till about 8:30 here, Central Time, and then regroup for tomorrow's severe weather outbreak in the plains. So just watching these areas here. But the downtrend is looking better there for the Butler County storms. Still areas around Dayton, Rural Valley. That storm there west of you guys is one to watch with some larger hail. The other thing I've noticed besides the reflectivity downtrending and the hail downtrending is also the wind seems to be downtrending as well. So not as gusty winds. Still though, even the non-severe thunderstorms near the Philadelphia area have produced gusty winds in the past. Even a report here around Harrisburg of a large tree down. And that part of that is, like I said earlier, this area has had, western Pennsylvania has had a lot of rain, so it's not going to take severe winds to push down trees that are rooted, shallow roots and things, which is a potential for other reports here too. But some of these reports back further into Pennsylvania were when there were severe warned storms. So just general rain and storms and gusty winds headed towards Philadelphia now, up through Trenton and towards the New York City area, but no severe weather there. This special weather statement for Philly is gusty winds up to about 40 miles an hour. And not even seeing a lot of lightning returns in here, so there may be a rumble of thunder, but not even heavy thunderstorms for areas east there. This is your strongest area still from Punxsutawney and Indiana towards Butler, and still some scattered storms in the areas in eastern Ohio towards Youngstown. So here's what I mentioned earlier, that slight risk continues this evening. I would say especially on the western half of this slight risk towards Pittsburgh, Wheeling, Morgantown, down towards Romney and West Virginia. Those areas have the most significant chance of seeing severe weather, especially in the form of hail. But that does seem to have downtrended over the last few hours, so that's a good sign. That's your risk for tonight. Wrong button. Tomorrow, there's some risk as this frontal system kind of stalls out. There's a bit of a risk around the Chesapeake Bay and Richmond for some storms that get vigorous after daytime heating. But the bigger activity is the enhanced risk here in Kansas and Nebraska as well as an enhanced risk along the dry line near the Texas Panhandle. They've shrunk the risk a little bit. It went back further earlier, but this area here in western Oklahoma and northwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, those are the two enhanced risks for tomorrow, as well as a wider slight risk that includes Kansas City, Tulsa, into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, down towards Lubbock, and then back up into Garden City, Kansas, Central and Nebraska, all the way up even towards Rapid City in South Dakota. So a pretty expansive risk of severe weather. Most of that should be later in the afternoon, and even a lot of the southern mode firing into the evening. Probably a little earlier up here in Nebraska, Kansas, closer to the low pressure system and along a frontal boundary here. But that'll all be stuff that we're watching tomorrow, and then that all marches east the next day with an enhanced risk in northern Missouri and central and southern Iowa, and then a larger risk, slight risk, all the way down east of Dallas, Fort Worth, into the Arklatex, all of Arkansas, and then really all of Illinois as well, as far out as some parts of the Ohio River Valley. So that's Tuesday, and then we'll see beyond that. It looks like the Ohio Valley will likely see some severe weather in the following days on Wednesday. I don't think this doesn't go out that far. Oh, it does. 4 to 8. So the Storm Prediction Center does have a day 4 risk area in that Ohio Valley from Nashville up through Bloomington and over to Cincinnati. So that'll be one to watch, and we'll certainly get more information on that as we get closer to those days. So still some strong storms going here. Just take the next couple minutes just to recap. Strong storms ongoing with some larger hail potential here in western Pennsylvania in areas south and now east of Butler, and then areas kind of west of Punxsutawney. Those are both two clusters of thunderstorms that are moving generally east-southeast. So that'll continue to affect areas around Ford City, Clinton, Saxonburg, down towards Leechburg and Harrison Township. And then the other storms affecting areas from Punxsutawney, Cherry Tree, Rain, Rural Valley, Dayton, Pennsylvania, and right now in the New Bethlehem, Brady's Bend, and Mahoning areas in Pennsylvania. So if you're out ahead of these clusters of storms, maybe as far down into Pennsylvania as Ebensburg and Altoona, definitely stay tuned to local media. Have multiple ways to get weather warnings, as this right now are the two severe clusters of storms that have been generally headed to that direction. Indiana, Pennsylvania, North Cambria, White, Latrobe, Johnstown, Portage, Hollidaysburg, Altoona, Tyrone may all see some larger thunderstorms later this evening and overnight, as well as areas back here towards Pittsburgh and Wheeling and Morgantown. Just have ways to receive weather updates. You can see some of these newer cells in the Akron area have a special weather warning, so new cells may continue to pop up here in eastern Ohio as they drift south and east across this region. They do have a hail damaging wind threat. The tornado threat was likely peaking earlier, but that should be lower as well this evening. So thanks for watching, and definitely stay tuned to our channel as well as socials, and we'll have updates on more weather, as well as tracking severe storms likely tomorrow afternoon. All right, thank you so much, and stay safe out there.